The arrow of time. Time flows in one direction. This is the fundamental truth that governs the universe, or so it seems. But the way we experience time and the way it is understood in the realm of physics are profoundly different. The concept of the arrow of time encapsulates the idea that time has a definite direction, moving from the past to the future, but the reasons for its unidirectional flow vary depending on the perspective. From thermodynamics to psychology, the arrow of time manifests itself differently, illustrating the contrast between the objective laws of physics and our subjective experience of time's passage. In the realm of physics, the thermodynamic arrow of time is the most commonly cited explanation for the directionality of time. According to the second law of thermodynamics, the total entropy of an isolated system always increases over time. This increase in entropy, or disorder, is a key marker of the passage of time. As systems evolve, they move from ordered states to disordered ones, which we experience as the inexorable forward march of time. This law gives us the objective basis for the arrow of time, one that is rooted in the fundamental principles of physics. The thermodynamic arrow of time provides a clear and measurable direction from lower entropy to higher entropy. Yet it's important to note that this is a statistical description. It's not that individual particles cannot decrease their entropy momentarily, but in a larger system, entropy tends to increase over time, thus giving a global sense of direction. However, this objective view contrasts sharply with our psychological perception of time. While thermodynamics dictates that time must flow in one direction, our subjective experience of time is far more fluid and sometimes disjointed. Our minds are capable of perceiving time in non-linear ways, memories that evoke the past, daydreams that drift into the future, or moments when time seems to slow down or speed up. The perception of time can change depending on our emotional states and attention. For instance, when we are deeply engaged in an activity, time seems to fly by, yet in moments of boredom, time can feel painfully slow. This psychological aspect of time introduces a layer of subjectivity that physics cannot fully account for. While thermodynamics tells us that time should always move forward, our minds sometimes bend this flow, making time feel relative and inconsistent. On a cosmological scale, the arrow of time reveals itself in the asymmetry of the universe's evolution. From the Big Bang to the present day, the universe has been expanding and cooling, gradually transitioning from a hot, dense state to the vast, empty expanse we observe today. This progression from a singular, highly ordered state to an expanding, disordered one mirrors the thermodynamic arrow, as it represents a movement toward higher entropy. The formation of stars, galaxies, and the eventual death of stars through supernovae or black holes, all these processes are linked to the forward flow of time. On a larger scale, this cosmological arrow hints at the ultimate fate of the universe, a slow fade into cold, lifeless entropy, a state of maximum disorder. Yet despite the clear directionality of time in both physics and cosmology, it's curious that time does not feel as orderly in our day-to-day experience. We live in a world where the passage of time is often governed by the personal, subjective rhythms of daily life, from the ticking of clocks to the unfolding of life events. In this way, our personal experiences of time are more like waves against the vast ocean of the thermodynamic and cosmological arrows. While the laws of physics point toward an inevitable, orderly progression, our lived experience is filled with pockets of uncertainty, change, and memory. Thus, the contrast between physics and subjective experience lies in the tension between the impersonal, relentless forward march of entropy and the more flexible, fluid perception of time that we humans navigate. Time, as experienced by the human mind, can be fractured, expanded, or compressed, while in the cosmos, it marches steadily forward toward an inevitable, disordered future. This paradox, where the flow of time is both a universal law and a deeply personal experience, is a reminder of the complexity of time, bridging the objective with the subjective and highlighting just how much we still have to learn about this fundamental aspect of reality, the impossibility of time. Time travel has long been a tantalizing idea. both in science fiction and in theoretical physics. The notion of journeying backward or forward through time evokes images of paradoxes, alternate realities, and the bending of the very fabric of space-time. Yet, despite its allure, time travel seems to be fundamentally impossible according to the conventional laws of physics. The reasons for this impossibility are rooted in the fabric of Einstein's theory of relativity, the concept of causality, and the paradoxes that arise when these ideas are stretched to their limits. At the heart of modern physics, Einstein's theory of relativity provides the framework that governs time and space. In his special theory of relativity published in 1905, Einstein showed that time and space are not separate, fixed entities, but are interconnected in a four-dimensional continuum called space-time. According to relativity, time is relative. It can be experienced differently depending on how fast an object is moving or how close it is to a gravitational field. This means that time is not an absolute, unchanging flow. However, while relativity allows for the dilation of time, where time moves slower in strong gravitational fields or at high velocities, it does not allow for the kind of time travel that we imagine in popular culture, where someone can travel backward or forward in time like flipping through pages of a book. The general theory of relativity, published in 1915, provides further insight into the structure of time. It describes how massive objects like stars, planets, and black holes warp space-time, creating the effect of gravity. According to Einstein, the curvature of space-time is what gives rise to the force of gravity, and this curvature also dictates how time flows. When dealing with extremely massive objects, such as black holes, the warping of space-time becomes so severe that time slows down drastically near the event horizon. But even though relativity predicts that time behaves differently in different gravitational conditions, it does not suggest that time can be manipulated in such a way as to allow travel backward or forward across time. One of the key limitations to time travel lies in the principle of causality, which states that causes precede their effects. This fundamental rule is essential for maintaining the logical consistency of the universe. If time travel were possible, it would create situations where effects could occur before their causes, leading to paradoxes that would challenge the very fabric of reality. The most famous of these paradoxes is the grandfather paradox. What happens if you travel back in time and prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother? If your grandfather never meets your grandmother, you could never be born and therefore could never have traveled back in time to alter the past. This creates a logical contradiction, something that seems fundamentally impossible within the laws of causality. Another paradox that emerges is the bootstrap paradox, where an object or information could be sent back in time and become the cause of its own existence. Imagine, for example, a time traveler who brings Shakespeare's lost works back to the past and gives them to Shakespeare himself. Shakespeare then publishes them as his own, and in the future, the time traveler reads these works, takes them back to Shakespeare's time, and so on. This creates a loop where the works have no true origin, undermining the concept of a cause and effect relationship. Relativity itself provides some insights into why time travel seems impossible within the known laws of physics. Closed, time-like curves, CTCs, paths through space-time that loop back on themselves are theoretically possible under certain extreme conditions, such as within rotating black holes, Kerr black holes, or in wormholes, hypothetical tunnels in space-time. However, even if these CTCs exist, they would still require conditions that are far beyond our current technological capabilities to create, stabilize, or navigate. Moreover, the physical reality of these time loops raises profound questions about the stability of the universe. If paradoxes like the grandfather paradox are allowed, they could lead to inconsistencies in the universe's history, potentially unraveling the very fabric of space-time. Furthermore, the energy requirements for creating such loops or wormholes are so extreme that they might be beyond the realms of physical possibility. Even if we could manipulate the geometry of space-time on the necessary scale, the energy involved would likely be far greater than anything humanity could harness. The practical barriers to time travel, coupled with the theoretical paradoxes that emerge, make it clear that time travel is not just technologically challenging, but likely an impossibility within the current framework of physics. In conclusion, while time travel remains a captivating and imaginative concept in literature and science fiction, it faces insurmountable obstacles within the laws of physics as we understand them today. The limitations imposed by Einstein's relativity, causality, and the paradoxes that arise from trying to manipulate time underscore the deep connection between time, space, and reality. While the idea of traveling through time remains an intriguing possibility in the realm of theoretical physics, it is unlikely that we will ever achieve it without rewriting our understanding of the universe itself, something that for now lies beyond our reach. Time as the fourth dimension. The concept of time as the fourth dimension is a central tenet of Einstein's theory of relativity, which revolutionized our understanding of space and time in the early 20th century. In classical mechanics, time was treated as a separate entity, distinct from the three dimensions of space. However, in Einstein's groundbreaking work, time is intricately woven together with space into a unified four-dimensional continuum known as space-time. In this framework, time is no longer just a linear progression from past to future, but a dimension that is intertwined with the spatial dimensions we move through every day. In relativity, space-time is the fabric of the universe, and objects move through it in four dimensions, the three spatial dimensions of length, width, and height, plus time. Just as we can move through space in different directions, we also move through time. This shift in perspective transforms time from a passive, unchanging backdrop to a dynamic, measurable entity that can be influenced by motion and gravity. This is famously encapsulated in Einstein's equation for special relativity, which shows that the passage of time is relative to the speed at which an object is moving. As objects approach the speed of light, time for them slows down relative to those at rest. This phenomenon is called time dilation. In the world of science fiction, time travel often takes on a more imaginative, fantastical quality. Movies and books envision time as a river, with characters navigating its flow through various methods, whether by traveling faster than light, using a time machine, or tapping into wormholes. These portrayals often treat time as a malleable and easily traversable dimension where characters can journey backward or forward, altering the past or peering into the future. These fictional depictions play on the notion of time as a fluid, navigable dimension, one where the rules are flexible and the boundaries between the past, present, and future are often blurred or ignored altogether. Real science, however, paints a much different picture. Time is not a magical, easily manipulated entity in the realm of physics. Instead, time as the fourth dimension is deeply tied to the fabric of space-time, where the flow of time is constrained by the laws of relativity and the speed of light. Time dilation, for example, is not a whimsical device that allows one to travel to the past, but a real, observable phenomenon that has been confirmed through experiments with particles moving close to the speed of light and with clocks aboard fast-moving spacecraft. While objects moving at relativistic speeds do experience slower time relative to stationary observers, this effect is not a gateway to the past or future. It's simply an expression of how time behaves under extreme conditions. The notion of time as a dimension also brings us to the concept of space-time curvature, where gravity is not seen as a force acting at a distance, but as the bending of space-time itself. Massive objects like stars or planets warp the fabric of space-time around them, causing the path through time and space to curve. This curvature is what we perceive as gravity, and it affects the flow of time in different gravitational fields. Near massive objects like black holes, time slows down significantly due to the intense warping of space-time, an effect called gravitational time dilation. While science fiction often portrays time travel through black holes as a thrilling adventure, real science tells us that the conditions near these objects are extreme and lethal, with time slowing to a standstill as one approaches the event horizon. The difference between science fiction and real science lies in how these concepts are portrayed. In fiction, time can be manipulated and controlled, allowing characters to alter timelines, travel to distant futures, or revisit past events. In real science, however, time is not a tangible entity that can be easily navigated or altered. The flow of time is governed by the unyielding laws of physics, laws that we can measure but not bypass. While the idea of time as the fourth dimension offers intriguing possibilities for understanding the universe, it remains far more grounded in reality than its fictional counterparts suggest. Ultimately, the true nature of time, as revealed through relativity, challenges our everyday experience and imagination. It reminds us that time is not just a backdrop to events, but an integral part of the fabric of existence itself. Our movement through time is bound by the constraints of space-time, and while the universe may be vast and mysterious, the flow of time remains one of the most profound and immutable features of reality. Wormholes and Einstein-Rosen bridges. Wormholes, often referred to as Einstein-Rosen bridges, are a fascinating and mind-bending concept that arise from the mathematical framework of general relativity. These hypothetical structures are shortcuts through space-time, allowing for faster-than-light travel between distant points in the universe. The idea suggests that rather than traveling across the vast, curved expanse of space, one could theoretically take a shortcut through a tunnel in space-time, instantly connecting two far-off regions of the universe. While wormholes are a staple of science fiction, their potential to revolutionize our understanding of time and space has captured the imaginations of physicists and astronomers for decades. The concept of a wormhole originates from the work of Albert Einstein and his colleague Nathan Rosen in 1935, when they proposed a solution to the equations of general relativity that described a bridge between two distinct points in space-time. The term Einstein-Rosen bridge refers to the mathematical structure they uncovered, which depicted a connection between two regions of space. In its simplest form, a wormhole can be visualized as a tunnel with two mouths, one at each end, each situated in different parts of the universe, separated by both space and time. These bridges theoretically allow for instantaneous travel between these distant points, bypassing the need for travel through the intervening space. Wormholes are not just theoretical curiosities, they are deeply connected to the fundamental nature of space-time itself. According to Einstein's theory of general relativity, gravity is not just a force, but the curvature of space-time caused by the presence of mass and energy. The more massive an object, the more it bends the fabric of space-time around it. This curvature creates what we perceive as gravity. A wormhole is essentially an extreme curvature in space-time, so extreme that it forms a tunnel connecting distant points in space and time. This bending of space-time theoretically could allow one to move from one point to another in what feels like an instantaneous jump, regardless of the vast distances in between. This concept stands in stark contrast to our everyday experience of time flow. In classical physics, time is treated as a steady, linear progression, an unbroken stream that moves from past to present to future, with each moment building on the previous one. We experience time as a continuous forward-moving force, with no apparent way to reverse or shortcut it. This unidirectional flow of time is what gives our lives structure and order, with the past behind us, the present unfolding before us, and the future yet to come. In classical mechanics, time is an immutable, linear progression that applies equally to all observers, regardless of their motion or position. Wormholes, however, introduce the possibility of bending this flow of time. By creating a shortcut through space-time, wormholes could potentially allow one to travel from one point in time to another, bypassing the normal constraints of linear time. This opens up the tantalizing possibility of time travel, where one could move forward or backward in time, experiencing events in a non-linear way. If a wormhole could be manipulated to connect not just distant regions of space but also different times, it would allow for travel through time itself, essentially bending the arrow of time. Yet this theoretical possibility of bending time with wormholes leads to several paradoxes and questions that challenge the very fabric of causality. If one were able to travel backward in time through a wormhole, it could lead to scenarios like the grandfather paradox, where changes in the past might alter the course of history, making one's journey through time impossible or illogical. These paradoxes underscore the limitations of the concept within our current understanding of physics. While Einstein's equations allow for the existence of wormholes, they also present challenges when it comes to ensuring their stability and preventing the creation of logical contradictions. Another significant issue with wormholes is their stability. In theory, wormholes could be short-lived, collapsing as soon as any matter attempts to pass through them. To make a wormhole traversable, it would need to be held open by some form of exotic matter with negative energy density. This hypothetical substance, which has yet to be discovered, would counteract the gravitational forces that would otherwise cause the wormhole to collapse. Without exotic matter, a wormhole would remain a fascinating but impractical theoretical construct. The possibility of wormholes also highlights the tension between classical time flow and the more exotic predictions of modern physics. While our daily experience of time is grounded in the familiar, linear progression from one moment to the next, the theories of relativity introduce a more complex, flexible understanding of time. Time can stretch, contract, and bend depending on the conditions of space-time. Wormholes are the ultimate expression of this flexibility, offering a potential way to manipulate the very fabric of time and space. However, they also underscore how far removed our everyday experiences are from the strange, counterintuitive realities predicted by modern physics. In the end, wormholes serve as both a mathematical curiosity and a profound reminder of the mysteries still to be unlocked in the universe. While they may be far beyond our current technological abilities, their exploration deepens our understanding of space-time and its potential limits, pushing the boundaries of both science and imagination. Closed, time-like curves. The idea of closed, time-like curves, CTCs, is one of the most mind-bending and controversial concepts in the study of time and space. In the framework of general relativity, a CTC is a path through space-time that loops back on itself, effectively allowing an object or person to travel through time, returning to a point in their past. While the concept of time travel is often relegated to the realm of science fiction, the mathematical equations of general relativity show that time loops, self-contained, closed loops in space-time, are theoretically possible. These closed, time-like curves challenge our fundamental understanding of time, causality, and free will, raising profound questions about determinism and the nature of reality itself. The most straightforward way to think of a CTC is as a time loop, a trajectory through space-time that returns to its starting point, allowing an object or observer to experience the same event multiple times. In classical physics, such a loop would create obvious contradictions. If you travel back in time and change something in your past, you might inadvertently prevent your journey from ever happening, leading to paradoxes like the famous grandfather paradox. The grandfather paradox asks, what would happen if you traveled back in time and prevented your grandfather from meeting your grandmother? Without the meeting, you would never be born, and therefore you could never travel back to alter the past. This creates a logical contradiction, suggesting that the very act of traveling through time could negate the conditions required for time travel itself. Despite these paradoxes, general relativity does not forbid the existence of CTCs. In fact, certain solutions to Einstein's equations, such as those describing rotating black holes, known as Kerr black holes, or hypothetical wormholes, allow for the possibility of CTCs. These solutions mathematically demonstrate that under certain conditions, space-time could bend in such a way that time loops are possible. For instance, if you could traverse a wormhole or pass near a rotating black hole, the fabric of space-time might curve in such a manner that a CTC is formed. However, these solutions also reveal that while mathematically plausible, the actual physical creation or navigation of CTCs remains speculative and fraught with paradoxical implications. The fundamental paradox of CTCs lies in the conflict between determinism and free will. In a deterministic universe, every event is the result of prior causes, meaning the future is fully determined by the past. If time loops exist, then all events within those loops must occur in exactly the same way, each time, as there can be no deviation from the loop's trajectory. This creates a closed causal loop where every event, including the decision to travel back in time, is predetermined and inescapable. For instance, if you travel back in time and give Shakespeare the works he is famous for, you might be the very cause of their creation, even though you never initially wrote them. This cyclical causality challenges the idea of free will, suggesting that our choices may not be as free as we think, but instead part of an inescapable loop. Alternatively, CTCs could open the door to a more chaotic universe, one in which events are not predetermined, but emerge through complex feedback loops that could evolve in different ways each time. While a strict deterministic view of CTCs might force all events to unfold identically, a universe in which time loops are possible could allow for new possibilities and outcomes to emerge within the loops. This would introduce a degree of freedom in the way time and events unfold, allowing for the potential to break free from the deterministic cycle. However, this interpretation would face severe challenges when trying to reconcile it with our current understanding of physics, which largely operates on the assumption of a smooth, predictable space-time fabric. There are also theoretical resolutions to the paradoxes created by time loops. One such resolution is the Novikov self-consistency principle, which posits that any action taken within a time loop must be consistent with the events that led to the creation of the loop. In this view, even if you travel back in time, you cannot alter the timeline in any way that would create a paradox. Your actions would always play out in such a way that the future remains consistent with the past. For instance, if you were to travel back and attempt to kill your grandfather, you might be prevented by some unforeseen force, ensuring that the loop is self-consistent and no contradictions arise. This principle attempts to reconcile the seeming conflict between free will and the deterministic structure of time loops by suggesting that the actions within a loop must inevitably maintain consistency with the timeline. Another approach to resolving time loop paradoxes is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which suggests that each decision or action creates a new, branching universe. In this interpretation, if you travel back in time and change something, it doesn't affect the original timeline, but instead creates a new branch of reality. This effectively sidesteps the grandfather paradox and allows for time loops to exist without violating causality. However, the many worlds interpretation introduces its own set of challenges, particularly regarding the practical observation and measurement of these parallel realities. In conclusion, closed time-like curves present a fascinating but paradoxical possibility within the framework of general relativity. While time travel remains an improbable and controversial concept, the theoretical existence of CTCs forces us to confront deep questions about the nature of causality, determinism, and free will. These paradoxes challenge our understanding of time itself, suggesting that the flow of time may not be as straightforward as we experience it. Whether CTCs can ever exist or whether they are purely mathematical curiosities remains one of the most profound and unresolved questions in modern physics. Quantum mechanics and time travel. Quantum mechanics introduces a world of paradoxes and possibilities that challenge our classical understanding of time and space, making it an essential element when contemplating the feasibility of time travel. At its core, quantum mechanics defies the predictable deterministic world we experience in everyday life. Instead, it presents a reality where particles can exist in multiple states at once, and events are governed by probabilities rather than certainties. This uncertainty and the phenomenon of quantum entanglement offer intriguing implications for time travel, hinting at connections between the quantum world and the concept of closed time-like curves, CTCs, where time might loop in on itself. One of the key aspects of quantum mechanics is the principle of superposition, where a particle can exist in multiple states or locations simultaneously until observed. This inherent uncertainty suggests that reality at the quantum level is fundamentally indeterminate. If time travel were possible, this indeterminacy might play a role in how time loops operate. For example, if a quantum particle were to travel backward through time, its state could be uncertain, potentially allowing for multiple timelines to coexist, an idea that mirrors the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In this interpretation, every quantum event that could lead to multiple outcomes, like a decision point or an action, results in the splitting of the universe into parallel realities. This could mean that time travel doesn't affect the original timeline, but instead creates a new branch of reality, where actions in the past lead to alternative futures, bypassing paradoxes like the grandfather paradox. The concept of quantum entanglement further complicates our understanding of time and causality. When two particles become entangled, their states become linked in such a way that the state of one particle immediately affects the state of the other, regardless of the distance between them. This spooky action at a distance, as Einstein once described it, suggests that information can be transmitted faster than light, potentially bypassing the traditional constraints of space and time. While entanglement itself doesn't allow for time travel in the traditional sense, it challenges our understanding of how information and causality work at the quantum level. Could entangled particles create shortcuts through time? Might these links between distant particles hint at the possibility of instantaneous communication across time, where the past and future are entangled, awaiting observation? Moreover, the uncertainty principle in quantum mechanics, which states that the position and momentum of a particle cannot both be precisely determined at the same time, adds another layer of complexity to the idea of time travel. In a universe governed by uncertainty, the very act of attempting to measure or predict the future or the past could introduce unpredictability into the process, making the future not just uncertain, but fundamentally unknowable. This presents a significant challenge for time travel, as it questions the notion of a consistent, predictable timeline. If every moment is in flux and shaped by quantum probabilities, can time truly be experienced in a linear, deterministic manner? Or is time itself an emergent property of a deeper, more chaotic quantum reality? The idea of the multiverse, which suggests that every possible outcome of a quantum event results in the creation of a parallel universe, offers another intriguing framework for understanding time travel. In this scenario, time travel could be seen not as a journey through a single timeline, but as a journey between multiple, coexisting realities. Each time a decision is made or an event occurs, a new universe is born. Thus, if a time traveler were to alter an event in the past, they might simply create a new branch in the multiverse, rather than affecting the original timeline. This would prevent the creation of paradoxes, since each possible outcome would exist in a different, parallel universe. However, while these quantum phenomena offer tantalizing possibilities, they also introduce fundamental challenges and uncertainties. The connection between quantum mechanics and the macroscopic, classical world of space-time is still not fully understood, and the potential for time travel, even within quantum mechanics, remains speculative. The uncertainty inherent in quantum theory makes it difficult to predict whether time loops could be stabilized or whether they would introduce contradictions, such as the inability to alter the past in any meaningful way. Without a more complete theory of quantum gravity, which seeks to reconcile the quantum realm with the laws of general relativity, the idea of time travel remains an open question, one that lies at the frontier of modern physics. Ultimately, the interplay of quantum entanglement, uncertainty, and the multiverse challenges our traditional understanding of time travel, offering both new possibilities and profound paradoxes. As we continue to explore the mysteries of quantum mechanics and space-time, we may find that the answers to these questions lie not in the certainty of classical physics, but in the strange and uncertain world of quantum phenomena, a world where time is not linear, and the past, present, and future may be more fluid than we ever imagined. The present moment and consciousness. The present moment is perhaps the most elusive and mysterious concept we encounter in our daily experience. It seems so simple, yet when we attempt to define or understand it scientifically or philosophically, it quickly slips through our grasp. We all experience the present, but what exactly does it mean to live in the now? The brain, in its complexity, creates a continuous stream of consciousness, where the present feels like an ongoing, fluid moment, constantly moving forward. However, this experience of now may not align with objective time, which is measured by clocks and calendars, and remains unaffected by our perception. The contrast between subjective experience and objective time raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness and the relationship between mind and the flow of time. In terms of neuroscience, the brain is constantly processing incoming information, constructing a coherent narrative of the present. But research into how the brain experiences the present moment reveals that the present is not a fixed point, but a continuous process. The brain processes sensory information, integrates it with memory, and makes predictions about the immediate future, creating an impression of a seamless, ongoing now. This continuous stream, however, may not always correspond with objective time, which is measured in discrete, quantifiable units. What we experience as the present is often a construct of our brain's activity, built on the past and influenced by our predictions for the immediate future. Interestingly, neuroscience has shown that our brains process the present with a delay. What we consciously experience as happening now actually occurred a few milliseconds ago, as our brain needs time to interpret and make sense of sensory data. This temporal gap suggests that the present moment we experience is not instantaneous, but rather a construction that bridges the past and the immediate future. The brain continuously updates this perception to create the illusion of a seamless flow, but there is always a slight lag between when something happens and when we experience it. Thus, the present moment is not as fixed as it seems, but is instead a product of the brain's ability to make sense of continuous input over time. Philosophically, the concept of the present moment has long been debated. Heidegger, for example, famously discussed the importance of the present in his work on human existence, or being. He suggested that the present is the only time in which we can truly experience life, as the past is gone and the future is yet to come. For Heidegger, the present is not just a fleeting moment, but the place where we encounter our existence fully. However, he also pointed out that the present is always in motion, forever moving toward the future and pulling away from the past, making it an elusive point that we can never fully grasp. The now is, in this sense, always slipping away, just as we try to capture it. In contrast to this subjective experience of the present, objective time is governed by universal, measurable units, seconds, minutes, hours. It is external, consistent, and indifferent to the fluctuations in our individual experiences. This dissonance between subjective experience and objective time raises important questions. If our experience of the present is a continuous fluid stream, why does objective time seem so rigid, divided into discrete intervals? And how do our brains reconcile the tension between the constantly flowing present moment and the fixed, measured passage of objective time? In the realm of physics, time is viewed as a dimension, like space, which moves forward in a linear progression. However, when we experience time, it is not a dimension we perceive directly. Rather, we sense it through the ongoing events and moments in our lives stitched together by memory and anticipation. This disconnection between experience and objective time also has implications for our understanding of consciousness itself. The present moment is where we experience life, yet it is also elusive and fleeting. The brain's continuous processing and prediction mechanisms allow us to perceive time as flowing seamlessly, even though it may be a constructed illusion. Philosophically, this challenges the notion of temporal reality, the idea that time exists independently of human consciousness. If time is a fundamental feature of the universe, yet our experience of it is always mediated by our perception, then time is both objective and subjective, both external and internal. Consciousness, in this sense, becomes the bridge between the two, interpreting and internalizing the external passage of time to create our sense of the present. Ultimately, the present moment is a fascinating conundrum that blurs the lines between subjective experience and objective reality. While our brains create the sense of an ongoing, continuous now, objective time moves relentlessly forward, independent of our perceptions. This contrast highlights the complexity of the human experience our minds are constantly trying to catch. up with time even as they shape how we understand it. The present, then, is not a static moment, but a dynamic, evolving construct that reflects both our inner worlds and the outer world of physics, where time marches on, regardless of how we experience. Memory and time travel. Memory is often considered a bridge between the past and the present, shaping how we perceive the flow of time. It is through memory that we connect events, form identities, and construct our personal narratives. But memory also distorts time. The way we remember events is far from a perfect reflection of reality. Memories are malleable, influenced by emotions, biases, and external suggestions. This malleability raises intriguing possibilities about the relationship between memory and time travel. Could memories be manipulated not just from the past, but also from the future? Could they be implanted, creating false memories of events that haven't yet happened or might never happen at all? While time travel, in the traditional sense, remains a theoretical and speculative concept, the idea of altering or implanting future memories touches on profound questions about subjectivity, consciousness, and the nature of time itself. Memory plays a crucial role in how we perceive the flow of time. Our sense of now is intimately tied to the constant processing of past experiences and future anticipations. Every moment we live is shaped by the memories of moments gone by and the predictions of what's to come. In a sense, the mind is always moving backward and forward at the same time, using memories to form a coherent sense of the present. But these memories are not fixed. They are constantly reshaped by our evolving understanding of events. A trauma can be remembered differently depending on how we emotionally process it over time. Similarly, our memories of joy, love, or wonder often evolve, colored by the emotions we attach to them. The subjective experience of time, then, is not a passive receipt of objective moments, but an active construction shaped by how we remember, forget, and reinterpret the past. This brings us to the fascinating concept of future memories, the idea that we could somehow receive memories of events that have yet to occur. In the realm of time travel, this idea has long been a source of speculation. If time is not an unyielding linear progression, but rather a flexible continuum, could it be that our minds are capable of accessing experiences from the future? What if it were possible for an individual to receive memories of future events, precognitive memories, if you will, that they believe to be their past experiences? This idea seems to push the boundaries of what we understand about time, memory, and perception. One way to imagine this phenomenon is through the idea of retrocausality, a concept proposed in certain interpretations of quantum mechanics. Retrocausality suggests that events in the future could influence the past, flipping the traditional cause and effect relationship on its head. If this were possible, could it be that future events leave an imprint on the past, making it possible for us to remember them before they happen? For instance, imagine you have a dream about a specific event, let's say, a conversation you will have in a year, and later, that very conversation takes place exactly as you envisioned it. The dream, in this case, might be perceived as a memory, even though the event has not yet occurred. If time is non-linear, could such premonitions or memories of the future be part of a deeper connection to the fabric of time itself? Another possibility lies in the manipulation of memory implants, a concept often explored in science fiction. In a world where neural interfaces and advanced technologies can record and alter memories, it could theoretically be possible to implant false memories of future events. If a person were given memories of experiences that have yet to happen, they might genuinely believe these memories to be part of their past. This notion introduces an eerie psychological implication, the idea that our perception of time and the very way we experience our lives could be controlled or manipulated by external forces. Memories are not static. They can be influenced by suggestions, emotional states, and even technology. This opens up questions about free will and autonomy. If our minds can be fed memories of the future, does this mean that we are not entirely masters of our own experience of time? While the science behind these ideas remains speculative, there are parallels in memory research and psychology that offer intriguing insights. False memories, which are memories of events that never actually happened, have been widely studied. In psychology, They are often the result of suggestion or the blending of real memories with fabricated details, often leading to distorted recollections. Could a similar mechanism allow people to remember future events as though they had already occurred? If the brain is capable of fabricating false memories, it is not beyond imagination that it could also create memories of future experiences, especially if those experiences are deeply emotional or significant. This raises important philosophical and ethical questions about the nature of identity and the self. If future memories could be implanted or perceived, would our sense of self become fragmented? Would our relationship to time become disjointed as we navigate between memories of a past we can't change and the anticipation of a future we can't yet see? The fluidity of memory and time suggests that our identity is not a fixed, immutable entity, but a constantly evolving narrative shaped by our experiences, our memories, and our expectation. In the end, while the concept of memories from the future remains firmly in the realm of speculation, it provides a fascinating lens through which to explore our understanding of time, consciousness, and the human mind. Memory, after all, is the lens through which we experience our lives and our relationship to time, and altering that lens, whether through the implantation of future memories or the manipulation of time itself, challenges our very sense of reality and existence. Consciousness beyond time. The nature of consciousness has long been a subject of profound philosophical and scientific inquiry, and in recent years, the question of whether consciousness could exist beyond time has gained traction. Could our awareness transcend the constraints of the temporal flow, existing independently of past, present, and future? Theories like panpsychism and non-locality offer compelling ideas that suggest consciousness may not be confined to the linear progression of time, challenging the conventional understanding of awareness as something tied to the finite passage of moments. Panpsychism, a philosophical theory that posits consciousness as a fundamental aspect of the universe, suggests that everything from subatomic particles to galaxies possesses some form of consciousness. Unlike the more traditional view that consciousness is an emergent property of complex brains, panpsychism asserts that consciousness is an intrinsic quality of matter itself, existing throughout all of nature. In this view, time may not be a constraint on consciousness, but rather a temporary phenomenon that arises within the context of the broader, timeless field of awareness. If consciousness exists universally, perhaps time as we understand it is merely an illusion in the greater context of a more eternal underlying consciousness. This could imply that our personal sense of awareness is not bound by the flow of time, but rather is a part of a continuous, ever-present consciousness that transcends the limitations of temporal existence. In panpsychism, the perception of time and the passage of events might be understood not as defining consciousness, but as a temporary experience within a deeper, timeless awareness. If all matter contains some form of experience or awareness, then the universe itself might be thought of as having a kind of collective consciousness that exists beyond the conventional limits of time. This raises the possibility that time is merely a construct, a framework within which we perceive ourselves and our experiences, but not necessarily a defining feature of existence. If the universe is always aware in some form, perhaps human consciousness is a localized expression of that larger, eternal awareness, experiencing time in a limited way but ultimately connected to a timeless, all-encompassing consciousness. Similarly, non-locality, a concept rooted in quantum mechanics, challenges the classical understanding of time and space. In quantum theory, particles that become entangled are able to instantaneously influence one another, regardless of the distance between them. This phenomenon, known as quantum entanglement, suggests that the connection between objects can exist outside the conventional bounds of space and time, implying that reality itself might have non-local properties. If consciousness could operate in a non-local manner, it could transcend the boundaries of space and time, implying that awareness is not restricted to the present moment or to the immediate surroundings of the observer. In a non-local framework, consciousness might exist as an interconnected, timeless force that is not limited by the passage of time, but instead operates across space-time as a unified whole. This idea opens the door to speculative theories in which human consciousness could potentially exist beyond the flow of time, interacting with the universe on a deeper, more profound level. What if consciousness, in its most fundamental form, is not anchored to the temporal events we experience in our lives? What if our awareness could access information beyond the present moment, tapping into a broader, eternal consciousness that exists outside the normal constraints of time? Non-locality suggests that consciousness might have access to a timeless field of awareness, where the past, present, and future are interconnected in ways we cannot fully comprehend. Just as entangled particles appear to be connected instantaneously, perhaps human consciousness too could be part of a vast network that transcends time. The implications of these ideas challenge our fundamental understanding of time, consciousness, and reality itself. If time is not the ultimate boundary of awareness, what does this mean for our perception of life, death, and the nature of existence? Are we merely local expressions of a larger, timeless consciousness, briefly experiencing time as part of a larger, eternal process? These questions force us to reconsider our relationship with time, not just as something we pass through, but as a temporary lens through which we experience the deeper, infinite reality of consciousness. Ultimately, whether consciousness exists beyond time or is simply a product of temporal processes remains an open question. However, theories like panpsychism and non-locality provide a tantalizing glimpse into the possibility that the flow of time may not be the ultimate constraint on consciousness. Perhaps in some sense, we are not merely constrained to live moment by moment, but are in fact part of a broader, timeless awareness, one that connects us to the vast, mysterious cosmos beyond the bounds of time itself. The simulation hypothesis. The simulation hypothesis, proposed by philosopher Nick Bostrom in 2003, suggests that our reality could be an artificial simulation, an elaborate computer program created by a highly advanced civilization. In this hypothesis, time, space, and even the laws of physics could be nothing more than constructs within a simulated universe. As technology progresses, it is conceivable that a future civilization could create virtual realities so sophisticated that the inhabitants of these simulated worlds would be unable to distinguish their experience from what we consider real reality. But if our universe is indeed a simulation, how does it affect our understanding of time, consciousness, and reality itself? Could time, as we know it, simply be an illusion created by the simulation, or is it the underlying framework on which the simulation is built? In the context of the simulation hypothesis, the concept of time takes on a completely different significance. In our everyday experience, time is something that moves relentlessly forward, an unstoppable force that governs everything from the aging of our bodies to the shifting of the stars in the sky. We perceive time as an absolute linear progression and integral feature of the real world. But in a simulated world, time could be a construct engineered by the creators of the simulation, something that is programmed to run in a particular way to create a semblance of reality. In this scenario, time may not have the objective, unchanging nature that we assume it does. Instead, it could be manipulated, paused, or even rewound, depending on the whims or purposes of the simulators. The very flow of time in the simulation might be arbitrary, tailored to simulate a universe that feels real to the beings living within it, but which is, in fact, merely a projected experience. Virtual reality, VR, provides an intriguing comparison to help us understand the potential nature of time in a simulated universe. When we enter a VR world, time and space behave in ways that are dictated by the program. Our experience is immersive, and we perceive time in that world as being just as real as in the physical world. However, in the VR world, time exists because the simulation has been designed to include it. The moment we remove the headset, time in the virtual world ceases to exist. The idea that we could be living in a simulation where time behaves in a similar manner challenges our most fundamental assumptions. If our universe is a simulation, time might simply be a feature of the program, not an intrinsic property of reality. Just as in a VR environment, time could pause when we're not observing it or when the simulation is altered. The difference between virtual reality and real reality lies in the fundamental nature of existence. In a real world, we assume that time flows consistently and independently of our perceptions. We live within time, and our experiences are shaped by it. However, if we are living in a simulation, this flow of time could be artificial, programmed into the simulation as part of the sensory experience. The simulation might be running on a computer or quantum system far beyond our comprehension, and the experience of time within it could be engineered to mimic the passage of time in the real world. If time in the simulation is only an illusion, what does that mean for our perception of reality? How does our sense of self and consciousness interact with the constructed nature of time? In a simulated world, time could also be discontinuous, not moving in a smooth, linear fashion as we experience it in the real world. The simulation could create the illusion of time moving forward, even though the events we observe might be pre-programmed, replayed, or generated in real time based on our interaction. Just as video games allow players to experience worlds with their own internal rules of time, pausing, rewinding, or accelerating, a simulated universe might do the same. This would make the subjective experience of time dependent not on any objective progression but on the algorithm running the simulation. Our perception of aging, growth, and events could be merely part of the simulation's design to mimic the passage of time, not an actual unfolding of events in a physical reality. Additionally, the simulation hypothesis forces us to confront questions of free will and determinism. If our universe is a simulation, are we simply characters within a program, following predetermined paths laid out by the creators of the simulation? Or do we have the ability to break free from the constraints of the simulation and make decisions independent of the system's programming? The perception of free will could be another construct designed to make us feel autonomous within the confines of the simulation. This raises the issue of consciousness. If we are in a simulation, does our consciousness exist independently, or is it an emergent property of the simulated environment with no existence outside the simulation itself? The simulation hypothesis presents the idea that real reality might be no more real than a VR world, where time, space, and causality are all designed features of a sophisticated construct. If time is merely a simulation, then everything we experience, the aging process, the flow of events, the unfolding of history, could be artificially generated. This concept challenges not just our understanding of time, but our very concept of reality. If everything around us is a simulation, then the boundaries between what is real and what is artificially created blur, and we are left to question the true nature of existence itself. Are we mere players in a game, or are we part of a deeper, unknown reality, perhaps unknowingly, creating the simulation through our awareness? Quantum time travel and consciousness. The idea of time travel has long been the realm of science fiction, yet quantum mechanics offers surprising possibilities that blur the line between imagination and reality. While traditional concepts of time travel often focus on traveling through physical space-time, quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness, our most intimate experience of time, may have the potential to transcend the linear flow of past, present, and future. Could quantum principles like superposition, entanglement, and non-locality enable consciousness to travel forward or backward in time, bypassing the constraints that define our usual experience of time? These questions push the boundaries of both physics and philosophy, challenging our understanding of reality and the nature of consciousness itself. At the heart of quantum theory lies the concept of superposition, which states that a quantum system can exist in multiple states at once, each with its own probability. For example, a particle can simultaneously be in multiple locations until it is measured, at which point it collapses into a single state. If this principle applied to consciousness, it suggests the possibility that rather than being fixed in a single moment of time, the mind could, in theory, exist in multiple temporal states, simultaneously experiencing different moments in time all at once. This could open the door to a form of quantum time travel, where consciousness is not bound by the linear progression of time, but is instead free to explore the past, present, and future as potential states of awareness. Quantum entanglement, another key principle in quantum mechanics, offers further insights into the potential for time travel of consciousness. When two particles become entangled, their states are linked, such that the state of one particle instantly affects the state of the other, regardless of distance. This phenomenon, which Albert Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance, defies the traditional limitations of space and time. In theory, if consciousness were connected to the fabric of space-time in a similar way, it might transcend the usual constraints of time. Consciousness could become entangled with different moments in time, experiencing those moments instantaneously, regardless of when they occur in the timeline. Just as entangled particles seem to communicate across vast distances without any delay, consciousness could, in theory, span across time, experiencing the future or the past as if they were happening in the present. One of the most speculative but intriguing ideas is the concept of time loops and closed time-like curves, CTCs, which are solutions to Einstein's equations in general relativity. CTCs represent paths through space-time that loop back on themselves, allowing for time travel to the past. While these loops are primarily associated with physical objects, some theorists suggest that consciousness, being non-physical, could potentially travel through these loops. In this scenario, consciousness could move backward in time, revisiting past events, or forward to witness the future. Such time loops could, in theory, allow for retrocausality, the idea that future events could influence the past, upending traditional cause and effect relationships. If consciousness could access these loops, it might remember the future or predict the past, providing a profound challenge to the linearity of time and causality. The most radical interpretation of quantum time travel comes from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. According to this theory, every quantum decision leads to the splitting of the universe into multiple parallel realities, each corresponding to a different outcome. If consciousness is not confined to a single version of reality, it might be able to shift between these different timelines, experiencing alternate versions of events that have occurred or will occur. This would allow consciousness to move freely through time, experiencing different realities and timelines, each with its own distinct flow of time. Such a view suggests that time travel could be a matter of consciousness, navigating across a multiverse, experiencing the past and future in different realities, rather than simply moving through a single, fixed timeline. In addition to these speculative ideas, quantum consciousness theories, such as those proposed by physicist Roger Penrose and neuroscientist Stuart Hameroff, suggest that consciousness arises from quantum processes within the brain. According to these theories, if consciousness is fundamentally quantum in nature, it might not be strictly bound to classical notions of time. Quantum processes are known to be non-local, meaning that the influence of quantum events is not restricted to a single point in space-time. If consciousness operates through these quantum processes, it might be capable of perceiving and interacting with time in a way that is independent of physical limitation. This could allow for the experience of time travel, where consciousness might leap across time in a non-local manner, accessing the future or the past through quantum entanglement or superposition. The implications of quantum time travel are profound not only for physics but also for our understanding of self-awareness and free will. If consciousness can transcend the normal boundaries of time, what does that mean for the concept of the self? Is the self merely a temporal construct limited to the present moment? Or is it a timeless, fluid entity capable of experiencing different versions of reality across time? And if consciousness can travel through time, how does this affect our sense of personal agency and choice? Does the ability to perceive multiple futures imply that the future is predetermined, or does it suggest that we have the freedom to shape our destinies in ways we cannot yet fully comprehend? In conclusion, while quantum time travel is still a deeply speculative area of study, it offers an exciting frontier where the boundaries of physics and consciousness collide. Whether through entanglement, superposition, or the many worlds interpretation, quantum mechanics suggests that time may not be as rigid and deterministic as it appears. If consciousness is not bound by the flow of time, it could experience the past, present, and future in ways that defy our classical understanding of reality. This opens up new questions about the very nature of time, identity, and the potential for time travel beyond the physical realm. Temporal paradoxes and conscious identity. The concept of time travel inevitably raises the question of identity specifically, how a person's sense of self would persist or change if they were to travel through time. If consciousness could move backward or forward in time, would the person who travels remain the same, or would they become someone entirely different, altered by the very act of crossing temporal boundaries? The issue of temporal paradoxes, such as the grandfather paradox, complicates this further, suggesting that any change to the past could destabilize the future and disrupt the continuity of identity. In the classic grandfather paradox, the time traveler travels to the past and prevents their grandfather from meeting their grandmother, thus preventing their own birth. This creates a logical contradiction. If the time traveler was never born, how could they travel back in time in the first place? This paradox suggests that the mere act of altering the past could undo the very foundation of personal identity. If you change your past, does it sever your connection to the future you came from? Could you, as the time traveler, even remain the same person if the timeline is altered? On the other hand, if we adopt a more multiversal interpretation of time travel, where each change creates a new branch of reality, the question of identity becomes less about continuity within a single timeline and more about the continuity of self across multiple versions of reality. If your consciousness could travel to an alternate timeline where the past unfolds differently, is the you who travels still the same individual, or is it merely a copy of the original person, with a new set of experiences and memories? This suggests that temporal travel could create a split in personal identity, where each version of you experiences a different reality, but each one retains some core aspects of who they are. Furthermore, if consciousness is not strictly tied to time, as some quantum theories suggest, the idea of identity across time becomes even more fluid. In such a scenario, the self could exist as a timeless observer, transcending the constraints of linear time. Temporal travel would not necessarily erase or change the self, rather, it could allow the person to experience different versions of their life, potentially without losing their sense of identity. Time travel, then, might not disrupt consciousness, but rather offer new experiences of continuity and change, stretching the boundaries of who we are. The illusion of a fixed self. The concept of a fixed self, a consistent, unchanging identity that persists through time, has been deeply ingrained in our understanding of who we are. However, this notion begins to unravel when we consider the role of memory and time in shaping our personal identity. Memory is the thread that connects the past with the present, providing the continuity necessary for us to perceive ourselves as a stable, coherent individual. Yet memory is not a perfect reflection of the past. It is malleable, subjective, and sometimes even unreliable. As a result, our sense of self may be more fluid and fragmented than we care to admit, shaped by the passage of time and the way our minds reconstruct the past. The illusion of a fixed self may be just that, an illusion, a story we tell ourselves to create meaning and coherence in the face of constant change. Memory plays a central role in the formation of identity. It allows us to recall past experiences, re-examine decisions, and make sense of our personal narrative. Each memory acts as a building block, stitching together fragments of our past into a coherent whole. Without memory, we would have no sense of continuity, no way of understanding who we are or how we've arrived at this moment in time. Our personal identity relies on the ability to remember past experiences and apply those lessons to our present lives. But memory is not as infallible as we might like to believe. It is not a precise recording of events, but rather an evolving interpretation that can be influenced by emotion, external suggestions, or even simple forgetfulness. Memories can change over time, sometimes becoming distorted or entirely fabricated. As a result, the self that we perceive through memory may not be as fixed as we think. The perception of continuity, or the feeling that we are the same person throughout our lives, relies heavily on the illusion of memory stability. We feel that the person we were yesterday is the same person we are today because our memories tell us so. This continuity provides a sense of comfort and coherence, allowing us to navigate life with a sense of identity. But what happens when those memories are questioned or altered? The more we learn about the malleability of memory, the more we realize that our perception of a consistent self is built on a foundation of change. The memories we hold dear may not be as reliable as we think, and yet they are the scaffolding upon which our identity stands. If memory is so unreliable, can the self truly be fixed, or is it more of a fluid construct constantly shifting with the passage of time? Time, too, plays a crucial role in maintaining the illusion of a fixed self. Our lives unfold in a linear sequence where events happen one after another, creating the perception of progression and continuity. The passage of time gives us a framework to understand our growth, our aging, and our evolving sense of self. We see ourselves as moving through time, accumulating experiences, changing with each moment. The changes we undergo, whether physical, emotional, or intellectual, are what make us feel like the same person over time. Without time, there would be no change. And without change, there would be no growth. The self would be static, unchanging, and unremarkable. But in this constant progression, time also highlights the tension between continuity and change. We experience time as an irreversible flow, where the past is gone and the future is yet to come. This linear progression is what gives us a sense of self, but it also reminds us that we are always becoming something new, something different from who we were yesterday. Interestingly, despite the inevitability of change, we continue to perceive ourselves as the same person over time. Even as we accumulate experiences, age, and adapt to new circumstances, there is a core sense of identity that remains intact. This is where the illusion of a fixed self becomes apparent. The perception of continuity, our belief that we are the same person throughout our lives, is not based on the unchanging nature of our identity, but on our ability to remember, interpret, and make meaning from our past. Time, in this sense, doesn't provide us with an objective sense of continuity. Rather, it forces us to confront the subjective nature of selfhood. There are moments in life, particularly in times of crisis or major change, when this illusion of a fixed self is shaken. When we undergo trauma, loss, or drastic change, our sense of who we are can feel fragmented or disjointed. In these moments, we may question our continuity, who we were, who we are, and who we are becoming. But even in these times of flux, we cling to the belief that there is a core self, a stable identity that ties everything together. The reality, however, may be that the self is not so fixed. It is an ever-evolving story shaped by memory, time, and experience, but never truly static. We may not be the same person we were 5 years ago or even 5 minutes ago, but the narrative we tell ourselves creates the illusion of continuity. Ultimately, the question of whether the self is truly fixed or simply an illusion is a deeply philosophical one. The illusion of a fixed self persists because it is comforting and because it allows us to make sense of the overwhelming complexity of human existence. In a universe where everything is in constant flux, where memory shifts and time marches forward, our sense of identity may be the one thing we cling to for stability. But this stability may be nothing more than a narrative we create to make meaning from the change and uncertainty of life. In this way, the self is both real and illusory, both continuous and ever-changing, forever shaped by the interplay of time, memory, and experience. Future memories and self-awareness. The concept of future memories. The idea that we might develop memories of events that have not yet happened sounds like the stuff of science fiction, yet it touches on profound questions about time, consciousness, and self-awareness. Could it be possible for the human mind to remember events from the future? or is memory strictly a process tied to the past? To explore this question, we must delve into the concept of retrocausality, a theory in quantum mechanics that suggests future events could influence the past. This theory challenges the traditional flow of time and raises intriguing possibilities about the nature of memory and our experience of time. In classical physics, time flows in a linear progression, from past to present to future. Our memories are anchored in the past, storing experiences that have already occurred. But retrocausality, as proposed in certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, suggests that this flow of time is not necessarily fixed or unidirectional. Instead, the future could influence the past, creating a scenario where events in the future leave an imprint on the present and even the past. If this is true, the line between memory and anticipation could become blurred, allowing for the possibility that we might remember things before they actually happen. One way to think about this concept is through the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. According to this theory, every decision or event that can lead to multiple outcomes generates parallel realities or timelines. In this multiverse model, different versions of you could be living out different possible futures, with each universe existing in parallel. If our consciousness could access multiple timelines, it might allow for the experience of future memories of events that exist in one of these alternate timelines. The mind could potentially remember a future version of itself, experiencing events that haven't yet occurred in the linear progression of its own timeline. Another angle comes from the idea that the brain, in its effort to predict and anticipate the future, could develop preemptive memories. The brain is constantly making predictions about the future, based on past experiences, sensory input, and learned patterns. These predictions are essentially anticipations of what is to come, and they guide our actions and decisions in real time. But could these anticipations be so vivid that they are perceived as memories of events that have yet to happen? If the brain's predictive model is advanced enough, it might generate future memories experiences that feel as though they are already part of the past, even though they have not yet occurred. In this case, the mind might remember an event before it happens, simply because the brain has already predicted its occurrence with remarkable accuracy. This idea also ties into the broader concept of intuition, those moments when we seem to know something before we consciously process it. Often described as a gut feeling, intuition is the brain's way of drawing on unconscious knowledge and patterns to make quick judgments. It's possible that in certain cases this intuitive process could generate a form of premonitory memory, where the brain anticipates future events so clearly that it feels as though the experience has already occurred. These anticipatory memories could create a sense of familiarity with future events, leading to a phenomenon known as déjà vu, where a present experience feels uncannily like something that has already happened. Retrocausality also raises philosophical questions about the nature of time and causality. If the future can influence the past, then cause and effect relationships become less clear. In a world governed by retrocausality, would the concept of free will still apply? Could our choices be influenced by memories of future events, leading us to believe that our actions are predetermined, or are we actively shaping our future based on our anticipations? The notion of future memories challenges the linear framework of time that underpins our understanding of the universe, suggesting that time might be more fluid and interconnected than we realize. In the context of consciousness and self-awareness, future memories would raise profound questions about personal identity. Our sense of self is largely constructed from our memories of the past, but if future memories could also play a role, how would we understand the continuity of the self? Over time, would we be able to distinguish between memories of the past and anticipations of the future? If our minds could access memories of things yet to come, would our sense of self become fragmented with different versions of us existing across multiple timelines and temporal experiences? Furthermore, if the mind could truly access memories of the future, it would imply that consciousness is not simply a passive observer of time, but an active participant in shaping it. This raises the possibility that consciousness itself might not be entirely bound to the constraints of linear time. if we could experience the future as a series of memories, could we also influence or alter those events before they unfold? Could we, in essence, alter our future by engaging with these future memories, creating a dynamic relationship between the present, past, and future? While the notion of future memories remains speculative, it offers an intriguing glimpse into the ways in which time, memory, and consciousness might interact in ways we have yet to fully understand. Whether through retrocausality, quantum mechanics, or the brain's predictive capabilities, the idea that we might develop memories of future events challenges our conventional understanding of time and the self. It forces us to reconsider the nature of reality, suggesting that the mind may not be bound by the linear constraints of time, but instead may be capable of engaging with multiple dimensions of time in ways that transcend our current understanding. Consciousness as a time traveler. What if consciousness is inherently non-local, not confined to a single point in time or space, and we experience time not as a fixed, linear flow, but as a constructed illusion? This provocative idea challenges our fundamental understanding of the self and reality. If consciousness is not tethered to the moment-to-moment progression of time, could it transcend the constraints of past, present, and future? Instead of time being something we move through, perhaps it is something we observe or interact with in ways that transcend our usual perceptions. In this view, consciousness itself could be seen as a time traveler, existing across all moments simultaneously, shaping the way we experience time and space. The concept of non-locality comes from quantum mechanics, where phenomena like quantum entanglement suggest that particles can be instantaneously connected, no matter the distance between them. This challenges the classical notion of time and space as separate, fixed entities. If the mind operates in a similarly non-local way, it could mean that consciousness is not bound by the rules of linear time. Instead of being trapped in the flow of time, our awareness could be connected to all points in time simultaneously, experiencing events from different perspectives and at different moments. Just as entangled particles influence each other instantaneously across vast distances, consciousness might operate across the entire fabric of space-time, moving freely between past, present, and future. If consciousness is non-local, this would imply that our sense of self is not restricted to a singular temporal identity. Instead, our personal narrative could be seen as an accumulation of experiences, each accessible not just through memory, but through a broader, more fluid connection to time itself. The past might not be a sequence of events that happened before us, but rather a reality that we can revisit and re-experience at will. Similarly, the future would not be a set of unknown events waiting to unfold, but a realm of possibilities that our consciousness could access or even influence before they occur. This would dissolve the traditional boundaries between subjective experience and objective time. Time would no longer be something that we passively experience, but something we actively participate in and shape. This notion of consciousness as a time traveler challenges determinism and free will. If consciousness is non-local and able to experience all of time simultaneously, how do our choices play out in the flow of events? Are we merely following a preordained path that our awareness is already familiar with? Or are we truly exercising free will, creating new possibilities with each moment? The experience of free will may be an illusion constructed by our consciousness, which in its non-local form may already know the outcomes of all our decisions. Yet within the illusion of time, we still experience the sense of agency and the belief that we are actively shaping our future. The idea that time is an illusion has been a central theme in both philosophy and modern physics. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant argued that time is not an objective feature of the universe, but a subjective construct of the mind. According to this view, we perceive the flow of time because of the way our minds organize and interpret sensory data. If time is an illusion, then our experience of past, present, and future is a result of how consciousness frames those moments. Rather than being passive observers of a linear flow, we are actively constructing our experience of time, pulling moments from the past and projecting possibilities into the future. This would mean that consciousness, in its non-local form, has the ability to exist outside the constraints of the clock, interacting with time in ways that transcend ordinary perception. This theory also raises the question of identity. If we are not tied to a fixed temporal self, what does it mean to be you? Are you the person you were in the past, or the person you are now, or perhaps the person you are yet to become? The continuity of self, that sense of being the same person over time, could be seen as another illusion created by consciousness to maintain coherence in our experience. If our consciousness is non-local, we may be experiencing all versions of ourselves simultaneously, not just as one continuous line, but as a series of interconnected, overlapping realities. In this light, identity becomes less about the passage of time and more about the perception and experience of being across multiple timelines, constantly shifting yet constantly connected. If consciousness exists beyond the confines of time, it would imply that the self is not defined by the temporal markers of birth, growth, and death, but by the experiences, choices, and connections we make throughout all time. The traditional boundaries of time and space would no longer constrain who we are or who we can become. Instead, we might begin to see time not as an inescapable flow, but as a landscape we can move through freely, with our consciousness acting as the traveler, not bound by the past or future, but existing in a timeless realm of possibility. In conclusion, if consciousness is truly non-local and time is an illusion, we must rethink everything we know about existence, free will, and the self. Time travel, then, is not merely a journey through physical space or a future event to be discovered. It may be the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, a journey through the ever-expanding, ever-present now, where all points in time are accessible and interconnected. Our perception of linear time may be nothing more than a convenient illusion, a construct that allows us to make sense of an otherwise boundless, timeless existence. Presentism versus eternalism. The philosophical debate between presentism and eternalism centers around one of the most fundamental questions about the nature of time. Does only the present truly exist, or does all of time past, present, and future exist simultaneously? This question touches on deep issues of metaphysics, reality, and our experience of time. It challenges not only how we perceive the world around us, but also how we understand the flow of events, the existence of objects, and even the nature of free will. Presentism, as its name suggests, asserts that only the present moment exists. According to presentism, the past no longer exists, and the future has yet to exist. Time, in this view, is a series of ever-shifting moments that constantly move forward, and only the present is real. The past is gone, and the future is only a set of possibilities yet to unfold. Presentism offers a seemingly intuitive view of time. After all, our direct experience is grounded in the present moment. When we look around us, we see the world as it is now, and we live our lives in the present. In this worldview, time is like a flowing river, with the present moment being the only point where reality truly exists. The past is a memory, and the future is an anticipation. Presentism also has important implications for identity and free will. If only the present is real, it means that the person you are today is the only version of yourself that truly exists. The past is just a collection of memories, and the future is something you can influence with your choices in the present moment. This view upholds the importance of agency, the idea that our decisions shape the future, because the future has not yet been written. Presentism emphasizes the impermanence of all things, as everything fades into non-existence once it passes into the past. It resonates with the feeling of time as an ongoing progression, where each moment gives birth to the next, creating an ever-changing tapestry of experience. On the other hand, eternalism proposes a radically different view of time. According to eternalism, all points in time past, present, and future exist simultaneously, much like different locations in space. In this view, the past has as much reality as the present, and the future is just as real as the moment we're living in. time is not a flowing river, but a spatial dimension where all events are laid out across a four-dimensional space-time. This interpretation is supported by certain aspects of Einstein's theory of relativity, which treats time as another dimension similar to space. In relativity, the past, present, and future are not distinct, but rather different parts of a unified objective fabric of space-time. Eternalism challenges our experience of time as something that flows. If all moments of time are equally real, then every moment, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, exists in the same way. The events of the past are as fixed as the events of today, and the future is already there, waiting to unfold. This view implies that the passage of time, the feeling of becoming that we experience, is an illusion, a subjective experience created by our limited consciousness. In eternalism, all events are equally real, but we are only aware of the present moment because that's where our consciousness happens to be. One of the most significant implications of eternalism is the way it changes our understanding of fate and free will. If all events in time already exist, what does that say about our ability to influence the future? It could be that, in an eternalist universe, our future is already determined, and the choices we make are simply the realization of future events that are already mapped out in the fabric of space-time. This deterministic view would seem to undermine the concept of free will, as the future is no longer open-ended, but rather a set of events that we are destined to experience. On the other hand, some argue that eternalism allows for a different kind of freedom. Freedom not to change the future, but to experience it from a certain perspective, as if we are traveling through time, witnessing events that are part of an unalterable whole. Both presentism and eternalism have profound consequences for how we think about the nature of reality. Presentism presents a reality that is always in motion, with each moment fleeting and ever-changing, while eternalism offers a more static view of the universe, where time is like a vast landscape and we simply move through it. Presentism aligns with our direct experience of time, where we feel that each moment is new, with the past gradually fading away. Eternalism, by contrast, challenges our intuition, asking us to imagine a universe where time does not flow, but is instead a collection of coexisting events that are all equally real, independent of our subjective experience. The tension between continuity and change is at the heart of this debate. Presentism allows for the idea that things come into being and pass away, with time moving relentlessly forward. In eternalism, however, the sense of change is an illusion. Everything that ever was or will be already exists, and our experience of change is simply the movement of consciousness through time. If time is an illusion, then the passage from past to present to future is just a mental construct, a way for our minds to make sense of the infinite and static nature of time. Ultimately, the debate between presentism and eternalism forces us to confront the most profound questions about existence. What is the nature of time? How do we understand change, memory, and identity? Are we really agents of our fate, or are we merely experiencing an already written story? Whether we subscribe to the view that time is a flow or that it is a static landscape, these perspectives shape not just our view of time, but our understanding of who we are and where we fit into the universe. The block universe theory. The block universe theory presents a radical and counterintuitive view of time. According to this theory, time does not flow or progress as we experience it. Rather, all moments in time, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously as part of a solid block. In this view, the universe is like a four-dimensional block, where every event, past, present, and future, is laid out in a fixed, unchanging structure. There is no true passage of time. Rather, time is akin to another dimension of space where all events exist in a single, timeless block. This idea stands in stark contrast to our everyday experience of time as a continuous, forward-moving progression, and raises deep questions about determinism, free will, and the nature of reality itself. The block universe theory is rooted in the framework of Einstein's theory of relativity, which treats time as just another dimension in a four-dimensional space-time continuum. In relativity, the fabric of the universe is seen as a unified whole, where space and time are intertwined. According to relativity, events are described not by the passing of time, but by their position within space-time. The idea of a block universe follows from this, suggesting that all moments in time, whether they are in the past, the present, or the future, exist as real, tangible parts of the universe. In this view, time is like the coordinates of space. It's simply a location within the block, and all points in time exist together, not in sequence but as a fixed structure. The most striking implication of the block universe theory is its challenge to our intuitive understanding of change. In our everyday lives, we perceive time as a continuous flow, with moments slipping away and new ones arriving. We experience time as something that passes where the past is gone, the present is fleeting, and the future remains unknown. The block universe, however, implies that this perception of change is an illusion. In this model, the future already exists, fully formed, as part of the block, just as the past is fixed in place. This means that every choice, every event, and every moment in history is already laid out and determined, from the Big Bang to the far future. In a sense, time is not something that unfolds, but something that is a static block where all moments are fixed and unchangeable. This view of time has profound implications for the concept of determinism. In the block universe, the future is already set, meaning that every action, thought, and decision we make is already part of the universe's timeline. This deterministic perspective suggests that free will is an illusion. We may believe that we are making choices, but those choices are already encoded within the block of time. In this sense, everything that has happened is happening and will happen has already been determined by the structure of space-time. The universe, in this view, operates like a movie that has already been filmed, and we are simply playing our part, unaware that the outcome has already been scripted. For those who believe in the concept of free will, the block universe presents a significant challenge. If the future is already determined, where is the room for personal agency? How can we have control over our actions if the outcomes of those actions are already fixed in time? This creates a tension between the experience of freedom, the feeling that we are capable of making choices, and the deterministic structure of the universe, which would imply that our choices are preordained. The idea of a block universe suggests that the choices we make are simply the unfolding of a reality that was already written before we made them, challenging the notion that we can change our future through free will. However, some philosophers and physicists have attempted to reconcile this tension between determinism and free will within the context of the block universe. One argument suggests that while the future may be fixed, we still experience the illusion of free will because our consciousness is embedded in the passage of time. In this view, we experience time as flowing and changing, even though in the grand scheme of things, all moments exist simultaneously. Our sense of agency arises from the experience of moving through this block, even if the entire block is already laid out. In this sense, while the future is predetermined in a physical sense, it still feels like we are making choices because we experience the passage of time as subjective beings. Another perspective argues that the block universe doesn't necessarily eliminate the possibility of freedom. It could be that while the future is already there, our perception of time as flowing gives us the experience of choice and agency, perhaps the experience of self-awareness and the ability to reflect on our decisions allows us to feel like we are shaping our future, even if, from the perspective of the block, everything is already determined. This view suggests that consciousness itself is part of the block, and while we might not be able to change the larger structure of time, we can still experience and interpret our place within it. Despite these attempts at reconciliation, the block universe theory remains a deeply challenging concept. It forces us to confront the nature of time, causality, and the meaning of personal identity. If the future already exists as part of the block, what does it mean for our sense of self? Are we simply passing through a timeline that was already set in motion, or is there room for consciousness to shape the way we experience time, even if the outcomes are already predetermined? In conclusion, the block universe theory presents a view of time that is radically different from our everyday experience. It challenges the way we think about determinism, free will, and identity, suggesting that time is not a flowing river, but a static block where all moments coexist in an unchanging structure. This view raises profound questions about the nature of reality and our place within it, forcing us to confront the relationship between time, change, and consciousness, and how our perception of free will fits within a universe where the future is already written. The butterfly effect of conscious choices. The butterfly effect, the idea that small, seemingly insignificant actions can have profound, far-reaching consequences, has become a central theme in discussions of time travel. In a speculative framework, if time travel were possible, even the most minor choices made in the past could ripple through time, altering the future in unpredictable and dramatic ways. This concept suggests that the fabric of time is not a rigid, linear progression, but a complex, interconnected web where every action, no matter how small, can shape the course of events. Just as the flap of a butterfly's wings might, in theory, set off a chain of events leading to a tornado halfway across the world, so too could a single, momentary decision, such as stepping on a bug, saying a particular word, or choosing a specific path, fundamentally change the future. In the context of time travel, the butterfly effect becomes even more pronounced. If a time traveler were to journey into the past and make even the smallest alteration, such as preventing an accident or altering a conversation, the consequences could cascade through time, amplifying over generations. The seemingly insignificant change could snowball, creating a dramatically different future, one in which the time traveler may not even recognize the world upon their return. This idea plays into the chaotic nature of time, where small fluctuations can lead to entirely new realities, a theme popularized in science fiction. One of the most fascinating aspects of this idea is the unpredictability of these changes. In theory, the butterfly effect suggests that it's impossible to predict the full impact of any action, as the consequences would spiral out of control in ways that are too complex to calculate. A time traveler's intervention in the past may seem trivial at first, but the cascading effects could lead to monumental shifts in the future. Even a seemingly minor action, such as someone not meeting their soulmate, could ripple outward, potentially altering political landscapes, technological advancements, and even the existence of future generations. The consequences of time travel would, therefore, be as unpredictable as the weather, subject to the chaotic feedback loops of cause and effect. This speculation about the butterfly effect in time travel brings with it an unsettling implication. Free will and determinism may be inextricably linked. A time traveler attempting to exercise their will to change the past could inadvertently set off a chain of events that results in the future they are trying to avoid. In this way, small choices may hold the ultimate power to reshape history, but with a complex web of uncertainty, suggesting that even time itself may be more fragile and malleable than we can fully comprehend. Time machines. Theory to reality. The idea of a time machine, a device capable of transporting individuals through time, has long captivated the human imagination. From H.G. Wells' famous novel The Time Machine to modern-day science fiction, the concept has become a staple of speculative thought. But what if time travel were not just the realm of fiction? What if the principles of general relativity, quantum mechanics, and cosmology could actually lead to theoretical methods of constructing a time machine? While time travel is not yet within our grasp, several theories in modern physics suggest that it may be possible under the right conditions, utilizing concepts such as wormholes, cosmic strings, and rotating black holes. These approaches raise profound questions about the practicality of building a time machine, contrasting our scientific understanding with the boundless imagination that fuels the dream of time travel. One of the most well-known theoretical models for time travel involves the concept of a wormhole, also known as an Einstein-Rosen bridge. In theory, a wormhole is a tunnel-like structure that connects two distant points in space-time, essentially providing a shortcut through the fabric of the universe. If a wormhole could be stabilized and navigated, it could allow for instantaneous travel between these points, potentially offering a form of time travel as well. Imagine one end of the wormhole existing in the present and the other end in the distant past or future. By traveling through the wormhole, a person could theoretically bypass the normal constraints of time, arriving at a point in history far beyond their own. However, wormholes come with significant challenges. Theoretical models suggest that wormholes could be extremely unstable, collapsing under the influence of even the smallest amount of matter. For a wormhole to be stable enough for safe passage, it would require exotic matter, a substance with negative energy density, to keep it open. Unfortunately, no such exotic matter has ever been observed, and it is unclear whether it even exists. This makes the prospect of building a functional time machine based on wormholes highly speculative, resting on phenomena that are purely theoretical at this stage. Another theoretical candidate for time travel involves cosmic strings, which are hypothetical one-dimensional defects in space-time that may have formed in the early universe. These strings, if they exist, are thought to be incredibly dense and stretch across vast distances, possessing enormous gravitational pull. According to some models, if two cosmic strings were to pass near each other at high velocities, the resulting warping of space-time could create a time loop, potentially allowing for travel into the past or future. However, cosmic strings have not yet been detected, and their existence remains a subject of intense debate among physicists. Even more speculative is the possibility of using rotating black holes, also known as Kerr black holes, to achieve time travel. According to general relativity, the rotation of a black hole causes space-time to twist and distort around it, creating what is known as frame dragging. Some theorists have suggested that if a time traveler could approach a rotating black hole without being pulled into its event horizon, the point beyond which nothing can escape, the extreme warping of space-time near the black hole could allow them to travel forward or backward in time. This would involve taking advantage of the closed time-like curves, CTCs, that exist in the space around rotating black holes, which theoretically allow for paths that loop back in time. While the idea is mathematically possible, the reality is that approaching a black hole is far beyond our current technological capabilities, and doing so would likely be deadly due to the extreme forces involved. These theoretical models of time, travel wormholes, cosmic strings, and rotating black holes are grounded in our understanding of general relativity and quantum mechanics, which are the bedrock of modern physics. However, each of these ideas is deeply speculative and fraught with challenges. For one, they all require conditions or substances like exotic matter or cosmic strings that have not been observed, and they often involve extreme forces and energies that are far beyond our current ability to manipulate. In essence, while the imagination can easily run wild with these theories, the practicality of turning them into real-world time machines remains a distant dream, if not outright impossible. Moreover, the question of whether time travel could ever be practically achieved also involves philosophical and ethical considerations. If time travel were possible, it could open up the possibility of altering the past or the future, creating paradoxes and potentially changing the course of history. The grandfather paradox, where a time traveler's actions in the past prevent their own existence, illustrates the profound risks and uncertainties that time travel could pose. How would humanity deal with the responsibility of such power? What would be the consequences of tampering with the flow of time? These questions highlight not only the technological challenges of time travel, but also the ethical dilemmas that could arise if such a power were ever to be realized. In conclusion, while time travel remains firmly within the realm of theoretical physics, the ideas proposed by wormholes, cosmic strings, and rotating black holes offer tantalizing glimpses into the possibilities of bending the fabric of time. However, turning these speculative theories into reality will require breakthroughs in physics, technology, and our understanding of the very nature of space-time itself. Until that time comes, time travel remains a fascinating yet elusive dream, one that blends imagination with scientific curiosity, forever shaping our search for answers to the deepest questions about time, reality, and the universe. Will we ever break time's chains? The dream of time travel, once confined to the realm of science fiction, has captured the imagination of scientists and dreamers alike for centuries, from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine to modern-day movies and books. The allure of traveling through time is powerful, but how close are we to developing the technology that could turn this dream into reality? Despite the advancements in physics, cosmology, and engineering, time travel remains a distant possibility, constrained by the laws of nature and the limitations of our current understanding of the universe. Still, theories and speculative ideas persist, suggesting that one day humanity might break the chains of time if only we could unlock the right scientific keys. The first step in considering time travel is to understand the theoretical frameworks that might make it possible. General relativity, Albert Einstein's theory of gravity, shows that space-time can be warped and manipulated by mass and energy. This means that in theory, if we could harness the right kind of energy and technology, we might be able to create conditions that could allow for time travel. As we've discussed in earlier sections, concepts like wormholes, cosmic strings, and rotating black holes offer potential mechanisms for time travel, each requiring conditions that go far beyond anything currently possible. However, these ideas remain speculative. While general relativity allows for the theoretical possibility of time travel, it doesn't provide a practical roadmap to achieve it. The technological hurdles are immense. For example, the concept of a wormhole, which theoretically could act as a shortcut through space-time, requires exotic matter with negative energy to remain stable. So far, no such material has been discovered, and the ability to manipulate space-time at such a fundamental level is far beyond our current technological reach. Moreover, the creation or stabilization of a wormhole would require incredible amounts of energy, likely on the scale of entire stars, which makes the practical application of this idea seem nearly impossible in the near future. Even if exotic matter were to be discovered, the methods for manipulating it and creating a stable wormhole are purely theoretical. Similarly, the idea of using rotating black holes or cosmic strings to achieve time travel comes with substantial obstacles. While rotating black holes theoretically create closed time-like curves, CTCs, paths that loop through time, reaching the event horizon of such a black hole would be an insurmountable challenge, as the gravitational forces near these black holes are extreme. For time travel to be possible in this scenario, we would need to safely navigate these gravitational maelstroms, which currently seems impossible with existing spacecraft technology. Beyond the theoretical challenges, there is also the matter of quantum mechanics. Quantum physics reveals that time is not as rigid and predictable as it seems at larger scales. Quantum phenomena like entanglement and superposition suggest that, at the microscopic level, time may behave in a more fluid, flexible manner. But bridging the gap between the quantum realm and macroscopic reality, the world of everyday objects and people, remains a major hurdle. The potential for time travel may lie in understanding how quantum mechanics operates on a larger scale, but this understanding is still in its infancy. Quantum computers, for example, could help us better understand the role of time in quantum systems, but their ability to unlock time travel remains purely speculative. The technological advancements required to manipulate space-time and achieve time travel would also require a paradigm shift in how we view physics itself. Our current understanding of the universe is based on a framework that doesn't fully integrate quantum mechanics with general relativity, two pillars of modern physics that have yet to be reconciled. The lack of a unified theory of quantum gravity is one of the greatest obstacles to understanding how time could be manipulated. Until we have a theory that unifies quantum mechanics and general relativity, time travel remains firmly in the realm of speculation. Moreover, even if we could develop the necessary technology to manipulate time, there are significant philosophical and ethical considerations. The implications of altering the past or witnessing the future are profound. Time travel could potentially lead to paradoxes, such as the famous grandfather paradox, where a time traveler could alter the past in ways that would prevent their own existence. Furthermore, the ethical implications of changing events in history could be disastrous. Would we risk altering the course of human development? Could the ability to manipulate time lead to catastrophic consequences if misused? These questions highlight the potential dangers of unlocking the power to manipulate time. Despite these challenges, scientific curiosity and the desire to push the boundaries of what's possible continue to drive exploration in this area. Advancements in gravitational physics, quantum computing, and space exploration may one day provide insights into the mechanisms that could make time travel a reality. It's possible that breakthroughs in our understanding of space-time could lead to technologies that allow us to manipulate time in ways we can't yet imagine. However, the road from theoretical possibility to practical application is long and uncertain. The development of time travel would require not only new scientific insights, but also technological leaps far beyond anything currently achievable. In conclusion, the dream of time travel remains far from reality, and while theoretical frameworks suggest it might be possible, the practicality of achieving it is still a long way off. The challenges of manipulating space-time, understanding quantum mechanics, and overcoming technological and ethical barriers all point to the fact that for now, time travel remains firmly in the realm of imagination. Yet, it is this very imagination that pushes us to explore the unknown, and perhaps one day, time's chains will be broken. A new era of consciousness. If time travel were to become a reality, the potential implications for human consciousness and evolution would be nothing short of profound. The ability to travel through time would not only alter our understanding of the universe, but would fundamentally shift how we perceive ourselves and our place in the world. Time travel could open up new dimensions of self-awareness, challenge our concepts of identity, and potentially even catalyze a new era of human evolution, one where consciousness itself evolves alongside our expanding understanding of time. At its core, time travel challenges the very concept of linear existence. As humans, we experience time as a one-way progression. Our lives unfold from past to present to future. This framework gives rise to our sense of self, a continuity of identity that is bound to the chronological flow of events. If we could travel backward or forward in time, however, our understanding of identity would be thrown into disarray. How would we view the self in a world where past, present, and future could all coexist, accessible at will? Would our sense of continuity, our feeling of being the same person over time, be disrupted? Alternatively, could time travel enhance our awareness of the fluidity of identity, encouraging us to embrace a more dynamic, less rigid view of who we are? If consciousness could exist across multiple time periods, could we experience multiple versions of ourselves, transcending the limitations of past actions and future consequences? The possibility of interacting with the past or future could also lead to a radical transformation of human consciousness. Imagine being able to witness pivotal moments in history, not as detached observers, but as active participants. The ability to see the future, whether through direct experience or through the knowledge of what's to come, would alter our decision-making processes. It could fundamentally change how we approach our lives, both individually and collectively. With the knowledge of future events, we might become more self-aware, not just as individuals, but as a species. Time travel could provide us with an opportunity to reflect on the long-term consequences of our actions, pushing us toward greater global consciousness. In this way, our awareness of time might lead us to become more thoughtful stewards of the Earth, recognizing our interconnectedness across generations. At the evolutionary level, time travel could create new pressures and challenges for human being. If we had access to the future, we could gain insights into our biological evolution, technological advancements, and societal structures. This future knowledge could propel humanity forward, accelerating the pace of scientific discovery and societal development. However, it might also lead to unintended consequences. The mere knowledge of our evolutionary trajectory could alter the course of our development, creating a feedback loop where the knowledge of the future influences present-day decision. Evolution itself could become non-linear, shaped not only by natural selection but by the conscious decisions we make with knowledge of the future. Could time travel become a force in accelerating human evolution? Would it spark a new phase in our development, pushing us toward a more advanced form of consciousness, one that is no longer constrained by the present moment, but is fluid, adaptable, and aware of multiple timelines? Furthermore, the experience of time travel could influence the brain's relationship with time. Currently, our brains process time as a continuous, forward-moving phenomenon, filtering experiences through the lens of memory and anticipation. What would happen to our cognitive abilities if we could step outside this framework? Time travel might unlock untapped mental faculties, allowing us to perceive time in ways we have never experienced. Imagine being able to access not only memories from our past, but also potential futures. This might enable us to make better informed decisions, tapping into a higher level of cognition that blends knowledge of past experiences with foresight of future possibilities. Our awareness of the past and future could allow for a more integrated, holistic way of thinking, one that transcends the linear constraints of the present moment. But as much as time travel could expand human consciousness, it also carries risks. The psychological toll of being able to witness one's own future or to alter past events could be overwhelming. The human mind is not built to comprehend the infinite possibilities of time. The emotional burden of knowing the future, whether of personal events or global catastrophes, could lead to anxiety, existential despair, or a sense of helplessness. Similarly, the knowledge of one's past mistakes and the temptation to undo them could lead to identity crises or psychological fragmentation. How would we cope with the possibility of seeing multiple versions of ourselves, each existing in parallel timelines? Time travel could force humanity to confront the limits of self-awareness, questioning the very essence of who we are if we are not defined by a singular timeline. Additionally, the potential to manipulate time could reshape human behavior. If people could go back to the past and alter events, would they still retain the moral compass that governs their actions? The ability to rewrite history could lead to a moral vacuum, where the concept of right and wrong becomes fluid, and people could justify any action with the knowledge that the consequences could be erased or altered. Time travel could amplify human greed, desire, and self-interest, creating new moral dilemmas that humanity would need to confront. In conclusion, time travel holds the potential to fundamentally alter human consciousness and evolution, pushing the boundaries of how we perceive identity, reality, and free will. By breaking the linear flow of time, it could open up new dimensions of thought, self-awareness, and evolutionary development. But it also poses psychological, ethical, and philosophical challenges that humanity would need to navigate, whether we break time's chains or remain within its grip. The very possibility of time travel forces us to confront the deeper questions about who we are and who we could become in the infinite stretch of time. The ethics of changing the past. The idea of altering the past to benefit the present or future raises profound ethical dilemmas that challenge the very foundation of moral reasoning. If time travel were possible, the temptation to intervene in historical events for the greater good would be irresistible. Could we justify changing past tragedies, conflicts, or personal decisions to create a better world? At what point do the potential benefits of altering history outweigh the ethical risks of tampering with the timeline? The complexity of this question delves deep into our understanding of morality, responsibility, and the consequences of our actions across time. On the one hand, the possibility of altering the past could be viewed as an opportunity to right historical wrongs. For instance, imagine a time traveler with the ability to prevent a genocide, avert a devastating war, or stop a disastrous event from occurring. From a utilitarian perspective, altering the past to save countless lives or to prevent immense suffering could seem morally justified. If the outcome of such changes is an improvement in the world, then the benefits would outweigh the ethical cost. This idea resonates with the desire to eliminate unnecessary suffering and to maximize well-being, an argument often used to justify intervention in critical situations. However, changing the past is fraught with uncertainty and danger, even well-intentioned. Actions may have unforeseen and irreversible consequences. The butterfly effect, where small changes in the past can lead to unpredictable and large-scale outcomes, highlights the potential moral hazards of tampering with time. A seemingly small intervention, such as preventing a single tragic event, could ripple through history in ways that are impossible to foresee. For example, if a time traveler were to prevent the assassination of a key historical figure, like John F. Kennedy, it could alter the course of history in profound ways, potentially leading to different political dynamics, social changes, or even new global conflict. The very fabric of the present could be fundamentally changed, and the greater good might not always emerge from such alterations. In addition to the unpredictability of consequences, there is a deeper philosophical issue about the integrity of the timeline itself. If we assume that time is an immutable construct, then altering the past could be viewed as a violation of the natural order. Some philosophical traditions, particularly those based in determinism, argue that everything that happens in time is part of a grand, interconnected chain of events. Changing the past would break this chain, creating a disjointed timeline that could lead to moral chaos. In this view, each event in history, no matter how painful or tragic, is necessary for the unfolding of the world as we know it. Intervening to change the past could risk losing the lessons learned from those difficult experiences, undermining the value of historical memory and growth. Moreover, the subjectivity of the greater good complicates the ethical calculus of time travel. Who decides what is best for humanity? What if the changes made to the past benefit some groups while causing harm to others? The ethical principle of justice comes into play here. Is it ethical to reshape history to benefit one group or individual at the expense of another? If altering the past involves discriminating against certain populations, even if the intentions are to improve society as a whole, can it still be morally justified? This raises difficult questions about power, privilege, and bias. Who gets to decide which historical outcomes are worth altering and who might be left behind in the process? Additionally, there is the moral issue of free will. In a world where the past can be changed, how does personal responsibility and agency function? If individuals' actions can be altered by time travelers, what happens to personal accountability? A person's ability to make choices might be undermined if their actions can be rewritten or manipulated by others. The very concept of autonomy and the idea that individuals are responsible for shaping their own future could be compromised in a world where time travel allows for constant interference. The ethics of changing the past also raise questions about historical memory and the authenticity of experience. If we were to erase painful or tragic events from history, say, the destruction of the Twin Towers on September 11, 2001, or the horrors of World War II, would we lose the lessons that those events taught us? Would altering the past erase the emotional growth of individuals and societies that resulted from overcoming these challenges? In this view, the suffering that comes from historical tragedies is not necessarily something to be avoided, but something that contributes to the maturation of humanity. To interfere with the past could, therefore, be seen as a form of historical erasure, one that denies future generations the opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the past. Lastly, there is the moral paradox of self-interested interventions. Would time travelers be able to resist the temptation to alter history for personal gain? If they could change the past to improve their own lives, perhaps by preventing their own failures or tragedies, how does this impact the ethics of time travel? The power to shape one's own timeline could be deeply tempting, yet it also raises issues of selfishness and greed. This kind of manipulation might not only lead to personal moral compromise, but could also create unfair advantages for those who have access to time travel technology, creating a new class of temporal elites who hold the power to rewrite history. In conclusion, the ethics of changing the past are complex and multifaceted, requiring careful consideration of the unpredictability of consequences, the subjectivity of moral judgments, and the potential risks to autonomy and historical integrity. While altering the past for the greater good might seem morally justifiable, the implications of doing so are fraught with moral, philosophical, and social challenges. Time travel, if it were ever possible, would not only present technical and physical obstacles, but also deep ethical dilemmas that would test the limits of human responsibility and the very fabric of moral reasoning itself. Time travel and free will. The concept of time travel introduces profound questions about the nature of free will and whether our actions are truly independent or predetermined. If the future already exists, as some interpretations of time suggest, then is free will an illusion? Time travel, especially the idea that the future is as real and unchangeable as the past, challenges the core of our understanding of choice, agency, and responsibility. If time is a solid, unchangeable block where past, present, and future coexist, does that mean our actions are already determined and we simply experience them unfolding? Or is there room for genuine choice within this framework? At the heart of the debate is the deterministic view of the universe, which posits that every event or action is caused by prior events according to the laws of nature. If time travel were possible and the future could be known or visited, it would imply that future events are fixed, part of an unchangeable timeline. This could suggest that everything we do is predetermined by the conditions of the past, and free will, the ability to choose independently, is a false construct. If the future already exists and is accessible, then, in theory, the choices we make today are already part of the timeline, and the future we are heading toward is set in stone. In this model, our actions may feel spontaneous, but they could just be a predetermined series of events already laid out in the fabric of space-time. This deterministic view presents a paradox for free will. If the future is already written, can we really change anything? Are we simply playing our parts in a script that was already written before we were born? This line of thinking suggests that every decision we make, every choice we think is free, might actually be inevitable, the product of an inevitable chain of events that stretches backward and forward in time. From this perspective, free will may be an illusion, and we are merely actors on a stage, unaware of the larger narrative that controls our action. However, there are other views of time that allow for the possibility of free will even in a universe where the future is accessible. One of these is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which proposes that every possible outcome of a decision spawns a new timeline or parallel universe. In this model, the future is not singular, but consists of many potential futures, each created by different choices. If time travel were possible within this framework, a person traveling into the future would not see a fixed outcome, but rather a snapshot of one of the many possible timelines. In this view, even if we can visit future events, choice and free will still exist because each decision creates a branching reality with different consequences and paths. For example, imagine a time traveler visits the future, and upon their return, they change their actions. In a deterministic universe, the changes they make would have been predicted and would not alter the overall course of history. However, in the many worlds model, the time traveler's actions would cause the creation of an entirely new timeline, one where the future they observed no longer exists, and a new path is forged. This suggests that free will might exist, even if time travel were possible, because each choice would be reflected in a new timeline and no outcome is inevitable. Another perspective comes from the block universe theory, which, while deterministic in nature, does not necessarily negate the existence of free will. In the block universe, all points in time, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously. This model suggests that while the future is already written, our experience of time is what gives us the sense of free will. Even though everything in the block universe is fixed, we experience time as a flowing process where we make choices based on our subjective perception of reality. In this view, free will is not about changing the future, but about how we experience the present and how we interpret the events that unfold in our lives. The question of free will also becomes more complex when we consider the potential for time travel to create feedback loops or paradoxes. A time traveler who returns to the past and alters events might set off a chain reaction that could change the course of history, thereby altering the future that was once considered inevitable. This introduces the concept of causal loops, where actions taken in the past might create circumstances that enable the time traveler's existence in the first place. If such loops are possible, then the concept of a predetermined future becomes even more tenuous. Instead of a fixed, linear timeline, the universe might be in a constant state of flux, where time travelers through their actions are constantly shaping and reshaping the future. In this sense, free will could be seen as the power to reshape the future and make meaningful choices, even if the larger structure of time is predetermined. One of the most profound implications of time travel on free will is the way it forces us to question our moral responsibility. If our choices are predetermined, do we bear responsibility for the outcomes of those choices? In a world where time travel exists and the future is visible or malleable, would we still be held accountable for the consequences of our actions? The ethical implications of time travel become even more complicated when we consider that any action, no matter how small, could have far-reaching consequences on future generations. If we know that our actions are leading to a certain outcome, does that mean we should alter our decisions to prevent undesirable consequences, or does it suggest that we should follow the timeline laid out for us, regardless of the ethical consequences? In conclusion, the concept of time travel introduces profound challenges to the idea of free will. If the future already exists and time is a fixed, unchangeable block, does that mean our actions are predetermined, or can we still exercise genuine agency even if the future is accessible or observable? The answers to these questions lie at the intersection of determinism, quantum mechanics, and philosophy, with time travel serving as a powerful lens through which we can examine our understanding of choice, responsibility, and the very nature of reality. Time travel for personal gain. If time travel were possible, the temptation for individuals to use it for personal gain would be immense. With the ability to travel backward in time, one could change past mistakes, avoid failures, and even achieve financial or personal success. The notion of using time travel for self-interest raises not only the possibility of extraordinary individual advancement, but also significant societal consequences. How would the very fabric of society change? If people could alter the past to benefit themselves, would it lead to disparities, unethical behavior, or a breakdown in the moral order? The most straightforward example of personal gain through time travel is the opportunity to prevent past mistakes. Imagine an individual who regrets a financial decision, such as investing in a failed venture, losing a significant sum of money. If time travel were possible, they could revisit that moment and make a different choice, perhaps investing in the right stock or avoiding a bad business deal. On a more personal level, a person could use time travel to relive moments of regret, repairing relationships, fixing arguments, or undoing heartbreak. The power to revisit past mistakes could offer an unparalleled opportunity to rewrite one's personal narrative, leading to a life of idealized decisions and outcomes. In a more extreme example, wealth and power could be accrued by leveraging knowledge of the future. If an individual could travel to the future and acquire knowledge of major technological innovations, financial markets, or scientific breakthroughs, they could return to the present and use that insight to monopolize industries, amass wealth, or even change political dynamics. For instance, someone could learn the stock market trends for the next few years, travel back, and use that information to manipulate trades and gain untold riches. This would create an unfair advantage, leading to a world where those with access to time travel could shape the future to their benefit, leaving others without such power at a significant disadvantage. The potential for time travel for personal gain would not be limited to financial opportunities. It could also lead to manipulation of the social and political landscape. An individual with knowledge of future political events, such as elections, conflicts, or revolutions, could travel back in time to manipulate outcomes. They could influence public opinion, sway election, or create false narratives to benefit themselves or a specific political ideology. This could destabilize governments and institutions, as individuals would have the ability to change history and shape it according to their desires, leading to a fractured and unpredictable social order. However, the consequences of time travel for personal gain would not be limited to the individual. On a societal level, the widespread use of time travel could result in moral decay and ethical corruption, as people began to exploit the ability to manipulate time for personal benefit. Society would face an erosion of trust. Relationships, businesses, and governments are built on the assumption that the past cannot be changed and that actions and decisions have lasting consequences. Time travel could unravel this foundation. If everyone knew they could change their past actions, accountability would collapse, leading to a world where choices become meaningless after all. If every mistake can be undone, what is the value of personal responsibility? Furthermore, a society where only a few individuals have access to time travel would inevitably lead to a two-tiered system, one where the rich, powerful, and privileged could shape history for their benefit, while the rest of the population would remain unaware of the alterations made. Time travel would likely become an exclusive technology accessible only to the elite, further entrenching social inequality. Those who already hold power would have the ability to solidify their positions by erasing their flaws, manipulating outcomes, or creating advantageous scenarios for themselves. This would lead to a world of extreme inequality where the rich and powerful are practically invincible, and the common person has little recourse for combating historical manipulation. The moral ramifications of time travel for personal gain are profound. If people can change their past mistakes, it may seem tempting to forgive them for their misdeeds, but this raises the question, should they be allowed to change their personal history for their own benefit? What happens to justice if someone can go back in time, erase their crimes, and avoid punishment? What about the victims, those who suffered due to an individual's past actions? Time travel could create a moral paradox where the concept of accountability becomes irrelevant. The ability to manipulate time could foster a society where ethics, justice, and responsibility are continually undermined, leading to an unstable and unpredictable future. In conclusion, time travel for personal gain presents enormous ethical dilemmas that would not only disrupt the lives of individuals but also shake the very foundations of society itself. While the ability to fix past mistakes or manipulate the future might seem like an attractive prospect, it comes at the cost of morality, justice, and fairness. If time travel were to become a reality, the potential for misuse would be vast, and humanity would have to grapple with difficult questions about how to prevent its abuse, ensuring that time's fluidity doesn't lead to moral decay and societal collapse. Time, change, and the human experience. The flow of time shapes everything we experience, from the mundane to the monumental. Time is the backdrop against which the entire narrative of human existence unfolds. It dictates our understanding of life and death, imbuing our actions with meaning and urgency. Time's constant progression allows us to perceive ourselves as evolving beings shaped by the past and oriented toward the future. Without time, change would be inconceivable, and the very concepts of growth, identity, and legacy would cease to exist. The awareness that time is finite, a limited resource, is central to how we define our lives and give them purpose. But what if time were infinite, unending, and without constraint? Would the human experience and the meaning we derive from it change? Would the preciousness of life be diminished if time stretched on forever? The finite nature of time has profound psychological and existential implications. Human beings are acutely aware of our mortality, the knowledge that our time on Earth is limited. This awareness imbues life with urgency and purpose. We are driven to accomplish, create, and experience as much as possible within the time we are given. The ticking of the clock can motivate us to take risks, to love deeply, and to pursue meaning, knowing that our time here is not guaranteed. Death, the inevitable end point of every human life, gives shape to our journey. offering the structure and finality that drive our decisions, relationships, and ambitions. Without the certainty of death, life might feel directionless, as there would be no ultimate consequence to our actions. The finite nature of time makes it precious. Each moment becomes an opportunity that cannot be repeated. But while time's finitude creates a sense of urgency, it also brings pain and loss. Time is the force that transforms all things, and with change comes the inevitability of change's cost. People grow older, relationships fade, and loved ones pass away. The very progression of time that gives meaning to life also brings about the loss of what we hold dear. This tension between the beauty of fleeting moments and the sorrow of impermanence lies at the heart of the human condition. Without time, there could be no growth or decay. Without time, there would be no birth or death. Our emotions, love, regret, nostalgia, grief are intricately tied to time. It is in our awareness of time's passing that we come to understand who we are, what we've done, and what we still hope to accomplish. On the other hand, an infinite existence where time is boundless and never-ending offers an entirely different set of possibilities. In such a scenario, life would no longer be defined by its impermanence. If time were infinite, every experience, every choice would lose its urgency and scarcity. The finite nature of time is what imbues our actions with meaning, but if time stretched endlessly, would our actions retain that same significance? Would the thrill of achieving goals or completing tasks diminish if there was no limit to when we could reach them? In an eternal existence, we would have unlimited time to explore, to learn, to experiment, and to accomplish everything. But paradoxically, this endless opportunity might eventually lead to apathy or even meaninglessness. Eternal life could create an existence where nothing is truly urgent and nothing is final, leading to the disintegration of the very things that give life purpose. The human experience, with all its meaning, might be reduced to an eternal cycle of repetitive action without true culmination. From a psychological perspective, an infinite existence would challenge our sense of identity. Who would we be if there were no end point, no final chapter in our personal stories? Without the certainty of death, how would we come to terms with who we are over time? The human desire for growth, for transformation and self-improvement could lose its meaning without the finite nature of existence. If we were to live forever, would we continue to evolve, or would we become stagnant, endlessly circling around the same thoughts and experiences? The cycle of life, birth, growth, death creates a narrative arc that defines the human experience, offering us the framework within which to understand who we are and what we strive for. Without this structure, existential inertia might take hold, leaving us adrift in an infinite sea of moments with no clear direction or purpose. The contemplation of infinite time also challenges the concept of meaning itself. If time were infinite, there would be no definitive end to human history, no ultimate goal or destination to aim for. The idea of a meaningful life would lose its context, as everything would be part of an unending continuum. The finite nature of time is what gives human lives their narrative shape, turning them into stories with beginnings, middles, and ends. Without this structure, the idea of purpose might become elusive. In an infinite existence, would the quest for meaning be endless, or would it lose its significance altogether? The very fact that we know our time is limited gives us a reason to pursue meaning, to leave a legacy, to make a difference, to impact others. In a world of infinite time, perhaps the quest for meaning would dissolve, as time itself would provide no endpoint for any of our efforts. In conclusion, the flow of time is not just a backdrop for life, it shapes our very experience of existence. The finite nature of time gives urgency to our actions, imbuing them with meaning and purpose, while the possibility of an infinite existence might strip away the urgency and lead to stagnation. Our awareness of time's passage influences how we live, love, and die. It is the tension between impermanence and continuity that defines the human experience, offering both the pain of loss and the joy of transformation. Whether time is finite or infinite, it is this relationship with time that provides the framework within which we create meaning and ultimately understand ourselves. Are we already living in the future? As we move through the present, it's easy to forget that we are constantly living in what, in a different context, might be considered the future. Each moment that passes inevitably becomes the past, and what we experience today was once just a future possibility. The very fact that we are aware of time allows us to feel that we are in a constant state of becoming, moving toward an unknowable yet inevitable future. This raises an intriguing question. Are we already living in the future? How much of our current reality is shaped by future possibilities, even though we cannot predict or fully comprehend them? The future looms over us as both a shadow of potential and a force that guides the present, and perhaps we are more interconnected with the future than we realize. The concept of time often places us in a linear progression, where the present is the only point we can directly experience, while the past is behind us and the future lies ahead, unknown and mysterious. However, our experience of the present is never disconnected from the future. In fact, much of how we act today is influenced by what we anticipate or hope for in the future, whether it's a personal goal, the trajectory of society, or even the fate of the planet. We make decisions based on our projections of what might come. Every action we take, every decision we make is driven by the possibility of the future, the hope that we can shape it, or at least navigate through it. This forward-looking mindset is ingrained in the very fabric of human experience. We spend much of our lives working toward future aspirations, becoming the person we want to be, achieving goals, or preparing for challenges that may come. We see the future as something that guides us, whether consciously or unconsciously. The choices we make in the present, who we marry, where we live, what career we pursue, are shaped by what we think our future selves will want or need. This dynamic creates a paradox where, in many ways, the future is already influencing our lives as we move forward, even though we cannot see it or fully understand it. Our actions today are built upon expectations and assumptions about a future that is still unknown. In this sense, we are constantly living in a blend of the present and the future. The future, while unknowable in specific terms, provides a framework within which we operate. It shapes our societal structures from economics to politics to technology and culture as we continually try to anticipate what is coming and prepare for it. The scientific advancements we are witnessing today, such as the exploration of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, or space travel, are built on the assumption that they will shape the future in profound ways. We are constantly creating the future by developing the technologies and ideas that will eventually define it. And, in this process, we often forget that the future is already being written in the decisions we make right now. Yet in another way, we are also unknowingly being shaped by the future in ways we can't fully comprehend. The concept of determinism suggests that the future exists in a predefined way, and that every action we take today is part of an already determined outcome. In this view, while we may believe we are actively creating the future, it's possible that the future has already set in motion a series of events that will unfold regardless of our decision. The idea that the future is predetermined challenges our sense of agency and free will, making us question how much control we actually have over the course of our lives. Could it be that the future we are striving toward already exists in some form, with every step we take today merely leading us down a path that was already laid out for us? This tension between free will and determinism can be explored in the context of time travel. If time travel were possible, we might be able to witness the future and observe how the decisions we make today will play out in the years to come. However, if we know what the future holds, would we be able to change it, or would our actions simply be part of a preordained loop? Could we alter our present, or is the future simply an inevitable outcome of what's already been set in motion? Time travel brings these philosophical questions to the forefront, illustrating how much of the future is not just a destination, but a force that influences the decisions we make in the present. Even in philosophical terms, the idea of living in the future goes beyond mere anticipation. Existential philosophers often discuss how humans are unique in our awareness of time. We are the only creatures who know that death is inevitable and who understand that our time is finite. This awareness is what drives us to find meaning and to create significance in our lives. But what if we could extend our understanding of time and see beyond the linear progression? What if we could step outside the bounds of our normal perception and realize that the future is already part of the present? Could we live more fully, knowing that we are not simply reacting to time's passage, but actively shaping and being shaped by it? The future is both a projection of possibility and an inescapable force. As we make decisions, plan for what lies ahead, and experience life's inevitable flow, we are constantly interacting with the future, whether we realize it or not. It looms over us even as we shape it. The very act of anticipating the future makes us participants in it. In this sense, we are already living in the future, not just as travelers heading toward an unknown destination, but as creators of what is to come. Each step we take, each decision we make, propels us into a future that is both unknowable and inevitable, continuously influenced by the choices we make right now. In that way, time travel might not only be about moving across time, but about acknowledging that we are already part of it, constantly shaping and being shaped by the journey ahead. Embracing the mystery of time. As we explore the possibility of time travel, it's easy to become fixated on the mechanics, wormholes, black holes, and quantum paradoxes. But perhaps the true value of time travel lies not in the ability to manipulate time or transcend its constraints, but in the mysteries we have yet to understand. The very idea of time travel compels us to confront the limits of our knowledge, and in doing so, it invites us to reflect on the unanswered questions that remain at the heart of human existence. Time has always been a mystery, an invisible force that shapes everything we do yet remains elusive to our deepest inquiries. We experience time every day, but its nature continues to evade full comprehension. Physicists can measure time, break it down into units, and understand how it behaves on cosmic scales. Philosophers have pondered time's flow, its relationship to consciousness, and whether it's an illusion or a fundamental aspect of the universe. Yet despite these efforts, time remains one of the most puzzling elements of our reality. The question isn't whether we can travel through time, it's whether we can ever truly understand it in its entirety. If time travel is possible, it may not be the end of the mystery, but merely another doorway leading us to even deeper questions about existence, consciousness, and the fabric of the universe itself. In a world of unpredictable futures and unanswered questions, time travel forces us to acknowledge that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Maybe the true value of time travel lies in the journey of discovery itself, not in the destination. The mechanics of time travel are secondary to the profound implications it would have for how we understand humanity and our place in the universe. Time travel would not only alter the way we perceive the flow of events, but it would also challenge our ideas of free will, determinism, and moral responsibility. It would force us to confront the unknowns within ourselves and how we define purpose and meaning in a world where time is no longer an unchanging linear progression. Furthermore, the very possibility of time travel highlights how much we still don't know. We may have cracked the surface of some of time's mysteries, but the deeper philosophical, metaphysical, and scientific questions about its nature remain largely untouched. How does time interact with consciousness? Can we escape time, or are we forever trapped within its flow? Is time travel a physical phenomenon, or is it a deeply philosophical experience, reshaping how we view reality? These are questions that could not only transform physics, but also our understanding of what it means to be human. In the face of these mysteries, time travel becomes a symbol of our endless curiosity and our willingness to question the limits of what we know. At the same time, the pursuit of time travel, whether in theoretical or practical terms, reflects humanity's ongoing quest for knowledge. We seek answers to questions that may never be fully answered, and in this pursuit we shape our understanding of the universe. Just as space exploration has led us to new frontiers in science, time exploration, whether through thought experiments or technological breakthroughs, can broaden our perspective on the universe and our place within it. By embracing the mystery of time, we open ourselves to new possibilities, new paradigms, and new ways of thinking about our existence. Perhaps the true purpose of time travel is not to escape time, but to understand it better, to recognize that its mystery is what makes our journey through life so profound and meaningful. In the end, time may never fully reveal itself to us. We may never be able to break free of its constraints or even truly understand its essence. But in our exploration of time, whether through the lens of science, philosophy, or speculative fiction, we come closer to realizing that the value lies not in mastering time, but in accepting its mystery. Time travel, as a concept, may forever remind us that some questions are not meant to be answered, but to be embraced as part of the great unknown we are all part of.